Good morning, everyone. We're going to call a meeting of the Carson City Board of Supervisors and the Redevelopment Authority and the joint meeting of the Carson City School District Board of Trustees. We have all three meetings today. We're having the redevelopment and board today, and tonight is the joint meeting with the school board. Today is Thursday, January 19th, 2017. It's just after 8:30 a.m. We're in the community center at the Sierra Room at 851 East William Street in our very own Carson City. Could we have a roll call, Sue, for the record, please?
Sure. Good morning. Supervisor About, Supervisor Vonkowski, Supervisor Bagwell, Supervisor Barrett. Here. Mayor Kroll.
Here. Thanks, Sue. Could we call on our good friend Louis Locke of the Fountainhead Foursquare Church to get us started? Good morning, Louis. How are you today?
We don't have a DA.
Let's pray. Lord, we thank you for this day. As we stand at the doorway of inauguration and new leadership in our nation, we pray for your grace and mercy. We pray for a peaceful transition of power. Lord, we pray your blessing upon the mayor, the supervisors, the city staff, and their families. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Thanks for getting started, Louis. Thanks. Could we call on Supervisor About?
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, we're now going to move to item number 5. This is public comment time. This is the time for the public to comment on and discuss any topic that's relevant to or within the authority of this body, and we also take public comment as we go through the individual items. Generally, we do that where it's appropriate to do it. Go. Good morning.
Good morning. My name's Charlie Mann. I'm the agricultural science teacher and FFA advisor at Carson High School. So I brought a fellow student with us today, and we're going to just talk a little bit about a couple events that our high school as well as our FFA chapter will be hosting. One of the events is that Carson City or Carson High School was selected to host a regional contest for our state for FFA. So on February 20th, President's Day, we will be hosting the Western Zone contest where I believe it's 8 or 9 high schools from Reno, Lovelock, Yerington, Fernley and Fallon will be coming to Carson City to compete at a qualifying contest for our state FFA association. So we just want to let you guys know about that. We're going to be using Carson High School as well as Fuji Park for some of our events. We're also looking for judges, so if you are free on President's Day, which is I know a holiday, please contact me because we would love to have the community involved with our regional contest. And then I'm going to turn it over to Christian.
Thanks, Charlie. Good morning to you. Good morning, Christian.
Morning. My name's Christian. I'm one of the officers at our FFA chapter here at Carson. And the week of our Western Zone competition is also the beginning of National FFA Week. So in years prior of my 4 years of being at Carson High School, I've noticed but organizations such as FFA don't really get much publicity. So that's why I took it into my hands this year to us over at Carson High School to actually advertise FFA. So that's why on the day of Western Zone, hopefully the high school will be completely decked out in FFA colors, and hopefully it'll be able to stay that way for the entire week, so in that way new students, such as the freshmen, kind of have a way to be exposed to the agricultural program over at Carson High School, and I think that's about it.
Well, we're happy that you came down and let us know about push up FFA a little bit, because you're right. Sometimes they don't get all the visibility and recognition they deserve. And I know the board up here, all of us up here know what you do and very proud of what you do. Why don't you tell us just a little bit about what happens on the competition? I mean, what do you do?
Well, essentially at Zone, it's a kind of it's a way for those who are planning to compete in CDE competitions at state to kind of practice and see where they're at and what they need to really focus on. And like Mr. Mann said, it's kind of as a way to qualify to state. And I know for us at our chapter, we're using it as a way so it's kind of a way to pick out what teams we want to compete in that CDE.
So, and all these contests they emulate the actual trade or the actual job opportunities out there. So it ranges from agricultural mechanics, where we have students, not at our high school right now, but other schools throughout the state of Nevada, who are going to be working for the mines eventually. So they're going to be welding, fabricating, be able to do electrical be able to do electrical for a house, for a trailer, as well as be able to do raftering. So for agricultural mechanics on a farm and an agricultural setting, you have to be a jack of all trades. So in agricultural mechanics and technology, you're put in that situation where you're told that you need to weld a pipe onto a flat surface so that then it's able to hold water, or you need to be able to wire a trailer or be able to work on a small engine to make sure that it stays on the farm instead of going outside and hiring somebody else. The other contest that our students are competing in are nursery landscaping. So they'll actually go and get a plan, and they have to then follow that blueprint or that landscaping plan. So they're able to use the right materials. They're able to budget it out, calculate how much it's going to actually cost the person that hired them to be able to do the landscaping. Floral design, which Christian can talk a little more about, they run a floral shop at our high school. So the students that compete in that will have a team activity where they might have to do a wedding, and then they have to budget it out. They have to choose the right flowers, meet the demand that the bride and the bridal party decided that they want for the flowers, and maybe also ask or give them suggestions of, well, roses aren't in season in February, so maybe choose a different flower, which Valentine's Day is coming up, so that's always fun too. So if you want to continue more about those CDEs.
Well, essentially the CDEs, our chapter, we aren't the biggest. However, we do have a lot of students that are really interested in joining a bunch of CDEs. So odds are if you were to talk to one of the students at our chapter, they're doing more than one CDE, which I do find extremely beneficial in a way, because a lot of them are doing CDEs that kind of go hand in hand. So those who are doing livestock are also doing vet med. Over me, I'm doing floriculture, but I'm also doing nursery and landscaping. And luckily for me, a lot of the plants that we have to know for those cross into one another. And then another girl, Belen Silva, she also did floriculture a year before I did. So she does have some recollection of those. And a third girl on our team, she's really wanted to do an environmental resource team. However, that didn't go through. So now we have her on our nursery and landscaping, which goes hand in hand with what she originally wanted to do. CDEs, a lot of them do really benefit, because like we do have a lot of kids that did livestock, and a lot of them do have livestock. So it's their way of being able to use things that they learned both in real life applications with their own livestock, as a way to kind of see where they're at with a bunch of other kids around the state.
Christian, in the spirit of advertising, you have an upcoming fundraiser for Valentine's Day. So since you have the microphone, you might as well talk about it.
Okay, well, us over at the Floral Shop, this has been going on since Mr. Mann took over.
Yes.
Every year for Valentine's Day, we advertise and we sell that we're essentially selling rose bouquets both to students and teachers at the high school, as well as those out in the public. So Ms. Aboud agreed to let us put a few flyers in Adele's, Cafe Adele's. And essentially, this is a good way for us in the Floral Shop and the floriculture program at the high school to get some real-life business experience, as well as being able to be, okay, we're spending X amount on flowers, how much should we sell them for in order to make our money back and a profit?
So do you know how much they're being sold for? So
We're selling single
yeah.
stems for $5, I believe, and a dozen roses for $45.
50. We just merged it to 50
Oh.
actually yesterday.
For $50.
Sorry, we've been in the process.
Yeah.
Yep. And half dozen for 25.
Oh, yeah, half dozen for $25.
And how does one contact you if they want to order flowers?
You're able to email me at the cman@carson.k12.nv.us. So my email is on the Carson High website, and we also have it on our Capital FFA website and our Facebook page. So we'll be posting some of those as well on our Facebook page, which is Capital FFA on Facebook. So it's been a great opportunity for the kids to get this real life experience, because we're also, after Valentine's Day, 3 days later, we have a wedding, and then a week later, we have another wedding that we're doing flowers for. So we're getting out there, and they do great with the real life experience of dealing with brides. Sometimes are fun, sometimes not so much, but being able to help them make that day the best day out there.
Anybody else? Well, thanks, Christian and Charlie. Thanks for coming up and letting us know. And We all believe that FFA is important, as you've probably heard me say in the past. As life gets going faster and the digital world gets going faster and faster, it's important we not lose sight of what FFA does. Okay? All right.
Thank you so much.
You bet.
Thank you.
All right. Other public comment? Ms. Budge, good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Mayor, Supervisors. Jennifer Budge, Parks and Recreation Director. I'm so proud and excited to introduce Dan Earp. He's our new Recreation Superintendent. We recently did a slight reorganization in the department, so he'll be managing our entire Recreation Division, and he comes to us from Hermiston Parks and Recreation in Oregon, and we're so pleased to have him here. And I'll give him the microphone to introduce himself.
Good morning. Nice to meet you all. As Jen said, my name's Dan Arp, and just really excited to be here. It's my second week. So I came down from Oregon on the eastern side, so it's very similar climate. So pretty excited. Really looking forward to working with everyone and working with the community.
Well, welcome to Carson City and
Thank
welcome
you.
on board, Dan. We look forward to good things coming out of the recreation program. It's a big part of what makes Carson City a community and gives us a good sense of community. So, and you know what, I can't help, I come down here on 7 o'clock on usually mornings and see the kids on, the small kids getting ready to go to school, and they're here doing latchkey stuff, and it's really important to do that. So anyway, welcome. Anybody else? Thanks, Dan. Okay. We'll be running into each other quite a bit. In a good way. Thanks, Jen. All right. All right, anybody else on public comment? Anybody? Will? Mr. Adler? How are you today?
Good, Mayor. How are you all? I want to briefly comment on my overawed, impressive performance by the Board of Supervisors and Mayor and the staff at Carson City, especially with the ordinance coming up for the 6-month moratorium that I'll comment on later. But just overall, you guys are able to structure an educated proposal very well to adapt and work with the growing marijuana climate in Northern Nevada as well as the state of Nevada. I've been all around the state, and you guys do it sensibly, educatedly, and without knee-jerk reactions. That is refreshing. So just briefly want to comment on that, and then I could comment on the governor's proposal and other things that are announced this week that you guys are already ready for and adaptable to because of your well thought out, well done proposals. So just want to give you kudos ahead of time, and then I'll be around to comment on the actual issue later. And thank you all. Thank you, Sheriff, for being here too. Our biggest supporter in the room.
The sheriff.
No, I'm just kidding.
Go sit next to the sheriff, Will.
Yeah.
All right, any other public comment? Anybody? I don't see any then. As I said, we take public comment where it's appropriate. It usually is through each of the agenda items. Now let's move to the minutes. Item 6, the minutes of December 15th, 2016. Everybody had a chance to look at them? Motion's in order.
I move to approve the minutes of December 15th, 2016 as presented.
Motion and second on the motion. Discussion. Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Carried, unanimous. Oh, abstain. 4 favor, 1 abstention. Let me also say, the minutes, when I was first mayor, we're really a big backlog on minutes. And I think, the law requires us to have minutes done every 30 days, I think, something like that. 45 days? We're hitting that target. And, it's nice to see that. And I think that's a credit to our staff, to Kathy over there, and the people that work with her, as well as the Granicus program. So good move. All right. On the agenda, any
No
changes? Board members, any changes? All right, then unless there's an objection, we will take the agenda as published. Let's now move from the dais down on the floor and take up some special items on recognizing our good employees. Thanks. could we call up none other than Mitch Gower? Mitch, come on up. All decked out today, too. Look at that. Boonie, with a Boonie hat on, too. That's all right. That's all right. Well, Mitch, on behalf of a grateful community, we want to give you this longevity award and present this longevity award to you for 10 years of continuous and dedicated service to Carson City. I know you work at the landfill, and you're kind of the go-to, not kind of, but you are the go-to guy when things happen out there. And there's been a lot happening here lately out there at the landfill, right? Yeah. Nothing to do with water, though, right? No, nothing. Yeah. Well, Mitch, on behalf of all of us, the landfill is a big part of Carson City. It's a big part of, how we keep things clean. So on behalf of all of us, please accept our congratulations for 10 years of service. Okay. Come on up here. Deputy Pullen, Jeff, and Rex. Oh, boy. There he is. Rex, how are you today? How many years do you have, Rex? 5.
I'm not here for 10.
15. Jeff, on behalf of a grateful community, we want to present you with this award, a longevity award for 15 years of continuous and dedicated service to Carson City. I know that you work with the K-9 team. You got your dog Rex here with you. You're on the narcotics part of that end of that. It's a very important part of keeping us safe and keeping our community healthy and well. I also know that, when in this political year, when we had lots of people coming out here, as the capital we would have, you work very closely with all those, the Secret Service and other law enforcement agencies to make sure that there was nothing untoward that happened. And I know that you work heavily with ICE and things of that nature. And so on behalf of a grateful community, we'd like to thank you for your 15 years of service and your dog Rex for his 5 years. And we can't thank you enough for keeping us safe. Thanks, Jeff. All right. Here's this. We'll bring Rex up here. We have a consent agenda today. We're going to go back to the regular agenda. We're on item number 9, and you'll notice we have consent agenda. The consent agenda is for matters that can be handled more or less administratively. And if there's a question, if somebody if the board wants to pull a matter off the consent agenda, just let us know and we'll pull it off for individual discussion. If there's a member of the public that wants something on the consent agenda pulled off for individual discussion, we'll do that as well. But otherwise, it's an attempt to try and make sure that our meetings run effectively and efficiently. So has everybody had a chance to look at the consent agenda? Entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda as published.
I move to approve the consent agenda as published.
Second.
There's a motion and a second on the motion. Discussion. Hearing none. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Carried. Okay, let's move now to item number 11, purchasing and contracts. Who's doing this one? Chief? Laura? Okay. This is the matter of, for possible action on Eagle Air breathing air compressor system from Curtis Inc. through Fire Rescue GPO through a joinder contract. We have Laura and the chief here with us. Good morning. Laura, you want to give us the background, the financial background, and the administrative part of it, and then Chief, you tell us what we're doing here.
Sure. This is to approve the purchase of an Eagle Air breathing air compressor system from Curtis Incorporated from an amount of $58,000, and it will be funded from the Capital Projects Fund.
This is the same thing, City Manager, that you mentioned during the last opening?
Correct.
Okay. Chief, tell us why it's important to do this or not important.
Well, it's really important to do this. So it's a critical piece of equipment that lets the fire department operate. And what this compressor does is it fills all of our SCBA bottles. The one that we previously had was 24 years old and is no longer up to code. And it would have cost us more money than it's worth to make it, bring it up to code. And there was absolutely no guarantees. And if it broke again, then we're just out $27,000. So what we did is went out and found this one, and it also matches our air light unit, the same air compressor that we have. So on the service contracts, then we can go ahead and they'll take care of both compressors at the same time. One is primary, one is a backup. This is our primary system that we use to fill all of our bottles, and not only us, but our outlying areas, and even NV Energy uses it, and so does Southwest Gas will come in and use it too. So that's why it's an important piece of apparatus, and the reason why we ordered it earlier is because we have to have it. We have to have it, and the time frames, because if something happens to our other unit, then we can't fill our air bottles, which would be a major issue. So the lag time between ordering it and building it takes about 8 to 10 weeks, and so now they said they would have it hopefully within the next 4 weeks. So hopefully we'll get it in pretty soon.
Supervisor Bunkowski.
So we're currently using our backup generator to fill the air bottles?
Well, currently, yeah. What we have is we have an air light unit, so we have an air compressor on one of our mobile units, and that's the only thing, that's our primary right now.
So, Chief, can you go through the entire scope of the project and what the total costs are? Because this is just for the compressor, but there's other costs involved in this
Correct. What we
project.
did is we asked for $70,000 when it came to IFC, because inevitably something always happens, right? Because they have to bring this thing in and we have to relocate it. It has three-phase power, so, and they're always not the same size, right? They're always something different between how those work. So the amount that we put in there is for that contingency, if you will, for if we have to reroute power, because we have to bring in an outside contractor. The other thing too, it also has to be ventilated, and the ventilation has to be secure. And I'm not quite sure if the new one will actually meet up to our ventilation system. So that might have to be rerouted and redone. Again, we'd have to bring in a separate secondary contractor for that. So under our purchase agreement, the Public Works is going to set it in there, and then they have to actually hook it up, but it all has to line up. So that's the issue. If it doesn't just bolt right in, then we have to go out and fix those. And we didn't want to come back to you and go, hey, we don't have enough money to get it working. So that's why we did that.
So I guess my question for the board is, should we be approving $58,000 for the generator, or should we be approving $70,000 for the project?
I think in essence, the question is, when we do the augmentation, it has the $70,000 in the approval of the augmentation. So this is just the contract itself. So I think it's good, though, for the record that we note the project's actually $70,000, but we can approve the contract and then the augmentation.
Right, and obviously, if all the stars align and we don't have to use any of those funds, we're not going to. Yeah, absolutely.
Go ahead and put that on the record, too.
Oh, yeah,
you have to give it back. You
Absolutely.
don't get to
We'll give it back to you.
Yeah.
We'll definitely give it back to you. But the issue is the problem is that if we didn't have enough funding, right, then we have to come back through IFC, come back to the board and be delayed, and we can't delay this process to get this thing installed. So if there's an issue, we can hire somebody right out of the gate and get it done.
Very good. Other questions? Anybody? Good discussion from the board. Everybody's read everything. Okay. Public comment on this issue? Anybody? I don't see any motions in order. Supervisor Abel, go.
I move to approve the purchase of an Eagle Air breathing air compressor system with Curtis Inc. through Fire Rescue GPO joinder number VH11277 for an amount of $58,000 to be funded from the Capital Projects Fund.
Motion and a second on the motion. Discussion. Hearing none, all in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Carried unanimous. Okay, let's go forward to 11 Bravo. This is the 911 phone services contract with AT&T for a big dollar amount. Laura, are you going to talk to us about this, where the money's coming from and how much is there?
Yeah. This is to approve contract 1617-097, the 911 phone services with AT&T for an annual amount of $174,598.56 for 5 years, which is a contract amount of $872,992.80. There's a one-time charge of $4,340, which will increase the total contract to $877,332.80.
Sheriff, you want to take us through why we're doing
I'll
this?
jump in right here. We've got quite a few folks here that can give some information, but first, for the general public, the 911 phone service is maintained by AT&T Corporation, servicing the Public Safety Communications Center, will reach what I've referred to as its end of life cycle by the end of this current fiscal year. AT&T system upgrades are mandated by the FCC, and the documents have been provided to this board. Should be FCC 13-158 dated December 12th of 13, and require compliance to improve 911 reliability. PS document number 1375, and reliability and continuity of communications networks, including broadband technology. PS document number 1160. Project completion includes the upgrade of services of equipment at the communication center. Contract award and project duration is anticipated to take approximately 4 months, and therefore it doesn't allow us, and I apologize to all of this board for this, it doesn't allow us to hold off and wait for the budget cycle. We have to begin this process now. And as this came up shortly before Christmas, we realized we were going to have to bring this to you. And I apologize to Supervisor Bonkowski. Last year, when we did provide the budget, I believed that we made mention of this, but when we went back to our records, it doesn't look like we did. While it may have come up as a side conversation, there's no record on our side that it was brought up. Wasn't anticipated. It would have come forward in this year's regular budget cycle, but the contract must be awarded, so we are here today. Here to speak with you, I've got Ms. Ann Keast with the 911 committee. She is the chairperson. Kent from AT&T, who is well prepared to answer any of your questions. Karen Maracek is our communications manager, and of course Laura is here with us as well, and the fire chief. This is an absolutely essential item that we share with the public, so this is the right forum to do it in.
Good. Brad, do you want to hear from everybody first, or you want to?
Would if the representatives can come up. There's one chair here. There's a couple chairs over here. First, for our AT&T rep, what I'd like to have you go through is to give us a rundown of the old system versus the new system, enhancements to the new system, and of those enhancements, which ones are standalone components that we're being charged additional amounts for in this contract?
First of all, excuse me, my name is Kent Ameson with AT&T Public Safety. We have a dedicated public safety division. Carson City has a hosted 911 system that's hosted out of a data center that AT&T owns, and we sell as a service to the city of Carson for a monthly amount. The system that you have today, you paid us up front an upfront amount, and then that offset the monthly recurring. The price that's being provided today is roughly the same without you giving any upfront money, so that the overall monthly recurring goes up, but the true cost to the city for the 5-year contract is roughly the same. The reason that we need to do an upgrade is because of the derecho order by the FCC that mandated a 24-hour hold period for power outages. And the system that we have has 8 hours of UPS, and we need to move to 24 hours of UPS plus the generator backup. We are moving the 911 system, the core system, to an AT&T CO, central office facility, which has all of that infrastructure built into it. And with that move means that we need to move you to the new system. That new system includes an upgrade of the Vesta 911 system. Today, it's the precursor to that, the one that they're running today. We're moving to the new Vesta system. It's the latest IP infrastructure for 911. Included in those costs are the same recurring costs for ALI database. That's the location information that's stored within our database, and the routing charges for 911 calls. All of those costs remain the same. So roughly the cost to the city is the same. It's just, it appears to be more because of the lack of that upfront charges.
So there are some enhancements to this new platform, though, such as texting. Are there others? And what is the cost of those enhancements?
The texting is included as a budgetary cost at $200 a month. The texting isn't included as in this contract today. There's a budgetary amount there. It's not to exceed that. It will probably be less than that, but just that's a budgetary cost. The system puts in place, the system that's included in this contract puts in place the ability to integrate text into it. But that's the physical workstation that each of the dispatchers will sit in front of, has an integrated text capability. But the cost to connect to the text providers isn't included in this contract today, and just included as a budgetary charge.
Okay, I think that's my questions for you. The rates that we are able to charge as a surcharge under the 911 system, and Kenny and Bob, you could probably answer this, are set by the state. Is that correct? And that is not going to come anywhere near enough revenue to cover this contract.
Well, what's going on with the 911 fund is that, yeah, under the cellular service, it's a quarter, right? So our service fee is based on that. So the revenues that are coming currently into that 911 fund, because we're paying for dispatch out of that, we're paying for some other technology through those funds, and now with the increase, that fund eventually will be in the negative. There is a reserve of funds in there now, and you're able to offset what the increase will be, but in 5 years, you're going to have to either general fund that or option that fund.
I think it's actually in the third year.
Third year. I'm sorry, I didn't look at the other thing is we know that in the legislature this year we're trying to get that fee increased, okay? Because there's a statewide issue under the new, they're putting in new cell towers, they're putting in a whole new system, so they're looking at trying to raise that fee. We looked into trying to create it to where we could raise it in Carson City, and we can't. So it has to be done by the legislature, and they're trying to do that, and we'll have to see how that plays out. But if they do raise that, then we'll bring in additional funds, and there won't be an issue.
Did you have anything to add, Kenny?
No, I just would reiterate, this is a statewide issue. It is recognized that the fees that are being generated at this point today are not sufficient to maintain the technologies that are on board and that are draining that fund.
And a year and a half ago, when we were here discussing the Tiburon system, we made a choice to pledge basically most of the future revenue in the 911 surcharge fund to this upgrade for Tiburon. And at that time, I had asked if there was anything else on the horizon that might be coming up that would be an additional expense. This obviously seems to have caught everybody off guard. So I'm going to ask the question again, what else might be coming up that should be coming through the 911 surcharge fund that now, because there's no revenue or nowhere near enough revenue to cover our current expenses, is going to have to be subsidized by the general fund?
Other than call it routine maintenance equipment, breakages, things of that sort that might exist in the 911 center. I honestly cannot anticipate another hit to you. The data systems that we upgraded last year are completed. They are all in. All systems are running. The 911 system obviously is a parallel feed to that. I cannot anticipate, other than regular maintenance in the next 2 to 3 years, where we would have another surcharge need.
Supervisor Barrett.
First of all, I'm curious as to what it means when you say that you contacted competitors and that contact has been made and has been declined. That passive voice doesn't tell me who'd you contact and who declined.
I contacted Roy Alterman with West. Their former name was, can you help me out, Kent? The one?
Intrado.
Thank you. Intrado, and that would be the closest to a competitor. And he said we partner with AT&T exclusively for our network solutions, and therefore, as this is an existing hosted solution with multiple sites already in place, we were unable to provide a quote solely for Carson City, as there are multiple elements comprising the entire solution.
Thank you. And you mentioned that we and they are going to the legislature. Are we the city or are we the state? Who's going to the legislature when you say we and they to correct the fee that's charged?
We know it's being addressed by the state. I don't have the particular who's actually taking it, but I know it's on the governor's agenda because they have to do it on a statewide level, and that's where that's at. But I do have one thing I need to mention to you, just so you guys are unaware about it. Eventually, you're going to have to replace the radio systems in our dispatch. Now, it doesn't come through the 911 system and into this particular fund, but if you talk to our radio guys, they're going to be coming forward with new technology and new systems to be P25 compliant and all new stuff that has to come through into our radios. That's going to be an expensive hit, but it doesn't come through this particular fund. But there is, that's downstream a couple years from now, or just so you're aware of it on the radar, that there is some radio upgrades that have to happen.
So then my question kind of goes maybe at the state level. I noticed that the last changes were 2013. Are we expecting increased regulation, improvements that'll be forced into the system for additional costs? Do you see something on the horizon coming and getting us there too?
Well, one's the WestNet, and that's a national system, and they're upgrading all of our. It's going to be a broadband for public safety, and we can probably have Eric back there probably can talk about that too. But they're picking up all new cell towers, they're putting in new systems, and they're doing that on a nationwide level. That's going to allow fire and police to have their own communication channels, their own broadband. And that's kind of why they have to increase those fees, because everybody has to be able to pay for that on a statewide level, and they have to bring those things in. And that's where that bulk of money is going to go, is to upgrade that whole system. Is going to be separate for public safety, and that's a nationwide effort. They're putting billions of dollars into it throughout the United States. So they shouldn't have a whole lot of fees coming to us through the 911 fund over that, because it's a state-driven program, and we have to opt in or opt out. And we've opted in to be able to use those technologies within the city and within police and fire to do that. And they're still working on the whole system now. So are they going to ding us with any more fees? We don't know that yet, but they're trying to increase the fees for the state to be able to do that. And will they make a surcharge fee to be able to tie into that system? We don't know what the rules are yet for that particular new program that's coming through. But I know they're bringing it through all of the United States, through all the carriers between AT&T, Verizon, all those guys. So everybody has to share those towers and that technology to make this work nationwide.
Point of clarification, because when we read this agenda item, it appeared to us that our costs were actually increasing. And now from Ken's discussion, what you're indicating is we're doing one time of $4,300 you're saying 5 years ago, maybe that figure was 50,000.
It was 200 and something thousand.
200 and something
Yeah,
thousand.
so that's where the increases come, is the fact that you're not putting that upfront fee,
Okay.
and we're just putting that into the monthly recurring.
Because we don't have a bigger upfront, okay. Thank you.
Who's responsible if the 911 system goes down? Who has the liability for that?
AT&T is responsible for the service, and we're also responsible for any additional requirements during the term of this contract. So if there was any change to the needs of the system, regulatory or otherwise, AT&T is responsible for that, and there's no accommodation for us to come after you for any increase for the services that we are contracting for the 5-year term.
But you'll catch it up the next time on the 5-year.
If there was a need, yeah. And in this case, we're yeah, correct.
And either Ann or Karen, what's been our experience on working with AT&T on outages or failures or anything of that nature? You okay with that?
Absolutely.
All right. All right. Public comment? Right here.
Yes.
I am.
I'm not going to speak extemporaneously. When we were discussing this, I went home and wrote down what I want to say to you today.
Good, okay.
And so I'm Ann Keast, and I serve as chairman and have served as chairman of the 911 Advisory Committee since 2007. I think my terms are about to run out. But
You'll be reelected.
Oh, you think so? People ask me why I do this. And some of you have heard this story before. I grew up in the fire department. My father was a firefighter for 39 years, and I have his gold badge and retirement photo hanging on my hall. And John was in the other day, and he can verify this for me. And when he retired in full dress uniform, I was very proud of my father. But I also have a picture of my grandfather from 1906 driving the horse and wagon of the fire truck, with the firefighters standing beside him. So I've come a long way in the fire department. Thank goodness wasn't born in 1906. And so as a child, I spent a lot of hours in the fire department. I loved it. I grew up in it. And I used to spend a lot of time there with my father. When they were called out on a fire, I watched over the fire station for them while they were gone. But that's when they used the old ticker tape. Do you remember the old ticker tapes? Some of you aren't old enough to remember those. I used to love to watch it because it would tell you where they were to go. They didn't have the automated systems that we have now. And there were no enclosed cabs. The fire truck my father first served on is like the one over in the museum here in Carson. That's what I'm used to. The firefighters hung on the back of it, hoping they could get there in one piece. So for numerous years, I have been working with the promotion process here in Carson City. And because of my love and respect for the law enforcement and the fire emergency personnel, I have tried to stay in touch and work with the 911 system and any other things that are going on. Right now, I'm reading for the captain's exams. I have worked with those in Virginia City. I've worked with them in Carson City, reading the applications, sitting in on all the selections of those people. And I think that has served us well. And we're now up to possibly a new fire chief. That one is upcoming. And Bob, I'm sorry to see you leave. But I think these systems are important. I took 3 dispatchers to San Jose years ago. We looked at the 911 system over there, and we came back, and that system was finally implemented here in the fire department. So that was an interesting thing to see that happen. So why am I telling you all of this? I started with the 911 system when it was in your basement over in the old building. And I remember getting a call one day from a person, and she says, you know what? I have a person, because I was running training programs for the 911 system at the college. And she says, I have a person that needs to be a dispatcher, but she is blind. Now, you try to answer that one and hope you don't get sued. So anyway, we worked through that system. So Because of this priority, I think it's important for our citizenry that we have the best 911 trained dispatchers that we can get, and that we have the best system that we can protect our law enforcement personnel and our fire department personnel. Their safety is critical. These systems must be in place and must be maintained to protect our citizens and our personnel. So thank you. I appreciate your time, and like I said, I think it's a critical need, and I hope you will consider it positively.
Well, thank you for the history lesson too, Ann.
I thought you'd enjoy that.
We did indeed. Sometimes I think we ought to go back to ticker tape.
Sometimes I think so too.
All right. Any questions? Public comment on this issue? All right. Anybody want to do it? All right.
I move to approve contract number 1617-097, the 911 phone services with AT&T Corp. for an annual amount of $174,598.56 for 5 years, for a total contract amount of $872,992.80. Oh, plus 4,000. So, for a total contract amount of $877,332.80 to be funded from the 911 surcharge fund.
Second. There's a motion and a second. On the motion, discussion. Hearing and seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Carried. Thank you very much, and thanks, Ann, for your service to the 911. Thanks to your service to your community over all these years. It's a big deal. It's a big deal. And we ought to hear more about the history. That's great. All right. All right, let's take up item 12 Bravo. It's the interstate interlocal contract between the state of Nevada and Department of Corrections.
No, I want to do
12A, rather, excuse me. Oh, 12A. You know, I didn't want to have the Shade Tree Council disbanded, so I went right over it. I'm sorry. I kind of marked in my notes here, no need to do this. All right. All right. All right.
Very good.
Don't you think? Sorry.
Jen, Ms. Budge. Okay.
Thank you so much, Mr. Mayor, Board of Supervisors, Jennifer Budge, Parks and Recreation Director. I'm here with Mrs. Gianna Jax, I forgot, sorry, apologize, and she's the chairperson for the Shade Tree Council currently.
Good morning, Gianna. How are you doing?
Morning, Mayor. Very good,
How's the new mother doing?
Very good.
All right.
Thank you very much.
All right.
Well, that's good.
The Carson City Shade Tree Council was established in 1993. It's an advisory board for the Board of Supervisors. They also work with and assist the Parks and Recreation Commission and the department. The council in code, and I'll read verbatim, provides valuable advice on matters concerning the development, maintenance, management, and promotion of a safe, healthy, and attractive urban forest in Carson City. The council was also created as a requirement to become a Tree City USA, and Carson City is a proud member. That's a great source of pride for the community, and we are still currently a Tree City USA and still meet the requirements. For the past 24 years, the council's coordinated numerous community education programs, assisted with urban forestry grants, held annual Arbor Day celebrations, developed tree ordinances, which I want to point out is very rare, and this community has really comprehensive tree ordinances in the city code, and it's a very progressive thing to have. So we're so lucky that we had the Shade Tree Council work so hard to get those implemented, and it's not a commonality across the nation. So it's very rare and a great advantage for being here in the community. And they also ensured that the Tree City USA status was established and maintained, and that's, like I said before, a great sense of pride, and I think it's probably one of the greatest accomplishments from the Shade Tree Council. In recent years, the Arbor Day Foundation that certifies the Shade Tree or Tree City USA status has changed their requirements, and they no longer require a tree board. So a lot of communities, especially during the recession, it's very costly to have separate boards and commissions. They also now allow a government department to serve as the tree department, if you will. So a department like the Park Recreation and Open Space Department can serve as a tree department, and we can still maintain our Tree City USA status. over time, despite, efforts to recruit for the board, we have had difficulties. We have a very passionate board. The members that are there, we currently have 5 members, are so dedicated and passionate about it, but it is very difficult to recruit. It's a volunteer board. They're not paid. They put in a lot of time and effort, so it is difficult to recruit and fill those positions. So some members are there that probably would have liked to have gone off a little bit ago, and that's unfortunate, but we want to keep their involvement. They still want to be there. They still want to be involved in the community and work with our department, still work on Arbor Day celebrations and serve in that volunteer capacity, but maybe in a different format and not through a formal board. At the December 7th Shade Tree Council meeting, the council voted to recommend to the Board of Supervisors the discontinuation of the council and for the duties of the board to be incorporated into the Parks, Open Space, and Recreation Department. I really appreciate, and I know the members of the staff of the department really appreciate the efforts of the Shade Tree Council, their passion, their enthusiasm, and our department stands ready to take on these duties should that be your direction. And we have the capacity to be able to do that. We have staff that are so excited to actually get trained and develop their urban forestry skills and start to reach out into the community. So I think it's a great time for this to happen, at least to enable and to create additional training opportunities for our staff and be able to foster that development, and with the help of the members of the Shade Tree Council as well. We do have several members of the Shade Tree Council in attendance today and former members of the council. And after discussion, I know Mrs. Jacks has some comments that she would like to make. I do have some certificates signed by the mayor and a little token of our appreciation that we'd like to present at the end, if that's acceptable to the board.
Sure. And John, do you want to ask Jen, or do you want to hear from Gianna first before you question? Gianna, go.
Thank you, Board of Supervisors. For the record, my name is Gianna Jacks. I currently serve as our chairperson of the Shade Tree Council. As Jennifer mentioned, if you can just indulge me, I have just something I want to say to recognize the council has been around for 24 years, and a lot of people maybe haven't heard of the Carson City Shade Tree Council. It was approved in 1993 by the board. At the time was Greg Smith, Janice Ayers, Tom Tatro, Kay Bennett, and our late great mayor Marv Texera signed our original ordinance establishing the Shade Tree Council. I came before the board at the time in 2007 when I wanted to volunteer for the Planning Commission and had zero experience to be on the Planning Commission. And at the time, Supervisor Robin Williamson suggested that I apply to the Shade Tree Council. And her encouragement led me to applying, and I joined. At the time, several members who are here today remember we used to meet in the back of City Hall. Our meetings weren't recorded. It was a great time to be on the council back then. It was a little different. Then they moved us to the chairs that you are sitting in now. And I, for the last several years, along with former Chair Kyle Horvath, would sit there in those big leather chairs, and I even got to pound, Mayor, your gavel up there during our Shade Tree Council meetings. So we became very formal over the last couple years. And today, and as Jennifer mentioned in our meeting in December, we are officially dissolving the formality of the Shade Tree Council, holding the meetings, having staff there, during our meetings was possibly a drain. We did have trouble recruiting people, not for lack of trying, but we understand. We don't hold that against any of the citizens of Carson. So like I said, I just have a few things to say. The 24 years that the Shade Tree Council has been active in the city has really brought a community together. And the first Shade Tree Council board members was, and I apologize for the name pronunciation, Becky Beisenstein, Dan Graytek, Tom Henderson. Tom's here today. One of our original members, Donna Kuster, Jay Mayor Dierick, Ann Nunemaker, and Ed Skudlerick. I practiced these earlier, but it didn't work out.
We got them. We know who they are.
Okay, there's a couple more. The subsequent years, and I got a list of the original board members as it standed, and I'm a fast reader. It was Roger Comstock, Craig Hartman, Kenneth Music, Eugene Quarterson, Mike Tanchek, John Copeland, Lisa Lombardo, Ralph Maroney, Dallas English, Mary Lee Foster, Steve Lang, Mike Aragon, Kathy Unruh, Isabel Young, Sally Zola, Frida Ford, Christine Gross, Jean Baudet, Mike Enright, Shirley Faela, Donald Hanover, C. Geisler, Paul Stuckey, Mary Moline, Rex Harold, Clint Wirtz, Robert Ruffridge. I'd also like to thank other former members that I personally served with, Carol Roberts and Carol Brewer, Leanne Keever, and Kyle Horvath, who I mentioned is here today. I'd also like to thank our friends of the Shade Tree Council over the years, Susan Stead, Molly Sennett, Roger Mollendorf, Scott Fahrenbrook, Rod Hallenbeek, Dave Hallett, and of course, Tom Henderson, who continued his efforts even after he served on the council. Of course, our Park and Rec staff, Daria and Patty, Jennifer, Dave, and Steve, and of course, our meeting recorder, Tamar, who recorded all of our meetings despite all of my inefficiency in leading a formal official meeting. Of course, our current Shade Tree Council members, Roy Trenowith is here today. Roy has been a member since 2002. Roy? That's Roy Trenowith. Terry Ozawa was been a member since 2004. There's Terry. And Jens joined in 2013. This is Jens Pierman. He's our current vice chair. And Gary Borst, who's not here, he joined in 2014. I just thought it was really important to mention the names of the people who have been involved and served on the board. It's a very close-knit community. It's meant a lot to everybody over the years, and I didn't want anybody to get the wrong idea that we're just giving up on the Shade Tree Council, that we're just dissolving it without forethought and a lot of emotional attachment for everybody that's been involved. So, as Jennifer mentioned, we established the current landscape standards. We led our city in the Tree City USA Award every year, and one of our major accomplishments, which just happened year before last, was our tree inventory that was conducted when Kyle Horvath was our chair. That is a huge accomplishment, and I know as the board you see that now, and the city staff, our tree inventory is a great reward that the council led. We led that fight to get that done. We also taught many of our city staff and local tree enthusiasts in our community at our fall tree care seminars. However, our efforts will not stop. Many of us that you see before you today will continue the work to maintain these great endeavors behind the scenes. So we're not going away. We're just not having our formal meetings. The Shade Tree Council has always been a group of enthusiastic and amazing volunteers, and as all volunteers do, I would like to encourage other members of the community to reach out and join a committee or a council, especially those within our city government. And just like former Board of Supervisor Robin Williamson, when she encouraged me to join the Shade Tree Council, it was life-changing. It got me involved. I met all these great people, and everything that happened subsequently over the last 10 years. It's been 10 years. So I just want to thank everyone for being here today. I know Jennifer has a presentation. I want to make sure that the people that came down today can join up in our photo that we're going to take. In closing, I just want to mention that I did join in 2007, and over the years, as I mentioned, all the amazing people that I met, I learned a lot about our city. And when I was putting these words together, I also learned a lot about soil and pruning and tree maintenance and planting and our parks and the value of trees. I'm really thankful for that. Our city's urban forest is beautiful, is thriving, and it's because of our great work. I will take credit on behalf of the Shade Tree Council over the last over 2 decades. So I want to encourage you, the Board of Supervisors, today to keep a watchful eye on our urban forest and how valuable it is. Our city's continued beauty depends on you. I also want to encourage other members of our community to join in our continued efforts by contacting Park and Recs to volunteer for some of these endeavors that we will keep pursuing. So it is with great pride and sadness I make this final presentation as the last chairperson of the Carson City Shade Tree Council, and I believe I speak for every former member, every member here today, that it's been an honor and a pleasure to be such part of such a great community, and I think you all agree to that. So I want to thank everyone, for all your efforts, and it is a little sad. I don't know how everybody feels, Terry and Roy and Tom. It's been a long time, and it's special to everyone that was a member of it. A lot of people haven't heard of it, like I said, but we're thankful. And
well, we appreciate that.
Jennifer?
Yeah, we appreciate that, Gianna, and there's a couple questions up here. First, I think I speak for all of us that, the Shade Tree Council is one of those boards, it's not very well recognized, not very well known, but the work that it does and has done over the past has been extremely important. The Tree City USA designation is critical. Our urban forest is critical to the creation of a sense of community and as well as our community. So, and I think, we also appreciate folks looking hard at, whether they, how their function should be carried out. And, it's difficult to make those decisions to say, we want to meld it into Parks and Rec. But I think we would all encourage all of your current board members and past and other volunteers to stay active in making sure that we have a good community urban forest, because it is critical on a number of reasons, not just for the beauty of trees, but for the environment as well. So Supervisor Barrett has a question, then Supervisor Abel.
First of all, Gianna and Kyle and Jens, whom I know, and all the other people she has mentioned up here during her presentation, thank you. This is an important committee, and it was an important committee when it formed for the purpose it formed. I have to ask our Parks and Recreation Director how you're going to incorporate. I understand there'll be some savings from this because staff time is utilized for any committee that meets. And will those savings go to your department and be used in continuing tree work, or how's that going to work for us?
Thank you, Supervisor Barrett. Jennifer Budge, Parks and Recreation Director. That's a great question. There actually is no budget per se for the Shade Tree Council. The funding that's identified in your staff report, a little over $4,000, was revenue generated from the Fall Tree Care Seminar. But the Shade Tree Council definitely felt strongly making good use of that funds, continuing on the mission, vision, and everything. Currently, the staff, we don't have anyone certified as an arborist in our department. We rely on Public Works or contracting out that service, which not many people would know. I think that's sort of tragic, and we would really like to embrace that urban forestry program within our department, specifically in our park operations division. We do have staff that's interested and passionate about this field and that would like to be certified and sort of take this on and be the lead. We're working with other agencies in the region to do some collaborative outreach and education. We can't do it all on our own, but we want to make sure that we provide continuing education opportunities, education for the public, and taking that on, and we're looking forward to doing that. So we're currently going through a strategic planning process right now for the department. We'll be incorporating this in our strategic plan. So moving forward, we'll have staff that will continue to work on the tree inventory. We would like to purchase a tablet so we can go out, we can add all the new beautiful trees that were planted downtown into our inventory. And just to educate the public, Tree City USA is just not something you call yourself. It really demonstrates a commitment from the community, especially the city. You have to have a $2 per capita investment in trees to even get that designation, among a multitude of other requirements. So that's a real commitment from the city in our urban forest. It increases property values, it's community beautification, and obviously all the health and wellness benefits from trees that we provide.
I think I have that just in my yard.
Thank you for that. I want to say that in a former incarnation of my existence, my wife worked for the National Arbor Day Foundation, and we came from a tree city before we came here, and one of the things that drew us here was that. Name a few of the other ones, since you say they no longer require a separate citizens committee, some of the other Arbor Day Foundation requirements to be designated tree city. Don't go in a laundry list, but just a few of the highlights.
Thank you, Supervisor Barrett. You have to have a $2 per capita at minimum investment, as I said before. You have to have a tree board or department that's invested in providing outreach and education for the community. You also have to have, they like the inventory, they like, it's not necessarily a requirement, but you have to be monitoring the health and wellness of your tree population. So monitoring disease, looking at trends. There's a big bark beetle issue, obviously, in the Sierra Front, seeing what is impacting the local urban forest. So you're supposed to be actively monitoring those type of activities and things like that. You also have to have the tree ordinances, which obviously the Shade Tree Council made sure was implemented in the 90s. So those are the basic requirements.
Thank you.
And I just want to say thank you to the Shade Tree Council for your partnership and collaboration with the Greenhouse Project and your fall tree seminars. Appreciate that very much.
On trees, just as a, has anybody taken a look, I know we talked about it before, about the trees in Lakeview? It looks like a lot of them are starting to die. And I don't know if that's, and I've been told, maybe some of that's from disease, some maybe from road, the stuff we put on the road, or whatever. But
We can look into that.
I think it'd be
We
helpful to
actively work with Nevada Division of Forestry, the U.S. Forest Service, a lot of our partners in Bureau of Land Management and other neighboring areas about the trends and what they're experiencing, because if it's happening in adjacent properties, it's going to eventually happen to us. So we do work with them actively, and we can definitely go up there with them and our arborists, that are employed with Public Works to, look at and adequately assess those trees.
Okay, thanks. I appreciate that. All right, other board comments or questions? Public comments? Anybody? Oh, boy, nobody. Okay. All right. Let's take a motion before we do any certificates and see it, because it may be that you don't get disbanded.
I'll make the motion.
She's like, I'm
How about that? You give the certificates out anyway and say, this is for your continued service. How's that? Okay. So motion's in order. Who wants to do it?
I'll do it.
Supervisor Bukowski.
Move to accept the Shade Tree Council's recommendation to discontinue as a formal advisory board. Direct the Parks and Recreation Director to incorporate the purpose, mission, and vision of the council into the Parks, Recreation, and Open Space Department's functions. Authorize the Parks, Recreation, and Open Space Department to utilize the Shade Tree Council budget. I'm going to change that to utilize the Shade Tree Council's surplus funds for urban forestry education, management, and community outreach, and further direct the District Attorney's Office to draft amendments to the appropriate Carson City municipal codes for future supervisors' consideration to support these actions.
Second.
There's a motion and a second on the motion. Discussion. Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Carried unanimous. And we want to give to you and all past members of the Shade Tree Council our best for making Carson City a better place to live, work, play, and be healthy. So, Jen, you want to take over here?
I have certificates signed by the mayor for the board. I wonder if the current members and the former members could come up, and then we could get a picture with all of you as well. And
well, why don't we all just join?
We can
down
read
here.
the certificate. Lovely little tree. Hello? Okay. All right. Okay, so this is a certificate of appreciation for the Shade Tree Council, Carson City Shade Tree Council. And it says, since 1993, the Carson City Shade Tree Council has ensured that the community has an abundant and healthy urban forest. Through their dedication to maintenance, management, and education of a safe, healthy, and attractive tree canopy, the council was instrumental in establishing Carson City with the distinguished honor as a Tree City USA. Carson City's urban forest is vitally important to the quality of life in our community and contributes to the economic and environmental well-being of the city. Healthy trees improve the air we breathe, provide natural buffers to development and wildlife habitat, increase property values, and community beautification. Carson City's abundant urban forest ensures the ecological beauty of our community and provides a place for residents to connect with nature. On behalf of Carson City, the Board of Supervisors, and the Parks and Recreation and Open Space Department, we thank you for your dedicated service and commitment to enhance the quality of life in Carson City.
Why don't we just take a break for 10 minutes here and let's hang out. So we'll be in recess for 10 minutes. Going to call a meeting of the Board of Supervisors back to order. We'll now move on to item 12 Bravo. This is potential approval of an interstate interlocal contract between the state of Nevada, acting through its Department of Corrections in Carson City and through its Parks and Recreation and Open Space Department for inmate services. Ms. Budge, you're on today a lot, so why don't you tell us what's going on here?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Supervisors. Jennifer Budge, Parks and Recreation Director. For your consideration today is an interstate interlocal contract for inmate services for our Park Maintenance Division between Carson City, the state of Nevada, through the Department of Corrections. The previous agreement, which is very similar to the one that's before you today, at least the first umbrella portion of the agreement, expired June 30th, 2016. So shortly after I started, which is why it is in arrears. Today, the city utilizes inmate services in numerous capacities, especially in the Parks Department. It augments our park labor force, which is a tremendous help. With limited staff and financial resources, it's really essential that we diversify our park operations and a strategy, and we utilize full-time and seasonal staff, cooperative partners, volunteers, and inmates to properly care for our parks. With over 65 acres of developed parkland per park maintenance worker, the use of inmate services really provides an effective, low-cost alternative to augment our labor force. Inmates provide a variety of duties, including park and cemetery landscape maintenance, special event preparations for a lot of our community events, community beautification projects, vehicle mechanics, trash removal, and a multitude of other duties throughout our park system. The proposed agreement before you provides for, if you look at Exhibit A, it's the kind of meat of what's included in the Parks Department, and it provides for regular training of Park Department staff by the Department of Corrections to make sure we're managing and working with the inmates in a proper manner. Also, it provides for inmate pay of $1.50 per hour per inmate. So if you compare that to even our seasonal dollars, it's a tremendous cost savings. We added in there, at the request of Supervisor Bagwell, the option to have emergency use of inmates added to this agreement, which we didn't have previously. So like in the event of the flood or a fire or other mechanisms that we need in an emergency capacity, we have the ability now through this agreement to do that, and it would be at the same rate of pay for the emergency event. It also includes a termination clause, so if the city should desire to get out of the agreement, or if it's not working for us, there is an opportunity to do that. And the term of the agreement is through October 31st, 2020. I did request a renewal clause, but they just don't provide that in their standard agreements anymore with the state. Oh, and I did want to thank you just briefly. I know all of you had comments on this agreement. You were all very interested. I think we were able to incorporate everyone's comments, and I just wanted to thank you for all the feedback.
Jen, my question is with regards to the inmate services and the NID district, and if it's possible to utilize their services in maintenance, perhaps after special events or major cleanup or anything like that that needs to happen.
That's a good question, and it may be a question for the Department of Corrections to see if that's possible for the NID to contract directly with the state for those services. Right now, if you were to go through the Parks Department and pay us, we don't have the staff to be able to provide that supervision for the inmates based on our current staff ratio, but I can reach out to them and see if that's an opportunity. In the agreement, it talks about the order in which inmates are placed, and I know we're last on the list, but we've never not received our full allotment of inmates. I know Supervisor Bagwell was very concerned about that, but that I'm not aware of them contracting with, I believe the NID is a nonprofit organization, if they contract directly with nonprofits or not. So I'd be happy to reach out to them to see if that's an option.
If you would, that would be great.
Interesting question. Okay. Other board comments? Public comment? I don't see any. Ready for a motion? Anybody want to do it?
I move to approve an interstate interlocal contract between the state of Nevada, acting by and through its Department of Corrections, and Carson City, acting by and through its Parks, Recreation, and Open Space Department for inmate services.
Second.
There's a motion and a second on the motion. Discussion. Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Carried unanimous. Okay, let's take up Item 12, Charlie, this is potentially to authorize the Parks and Recreation and Open Space Department to submit 3 separate land and water conservation fund grant applications for the following projects: disc golf, Roscoe Park, and the purchase of the fee title acquisition of 20 acres of land along US Highway 50 near Clear Creek from the Michael Fagan for open space and passive recreation purposes. Let me see.
Vern's going to do it?
Yeah. I got to find out if I'm, hang on a minute. 13, 12. I think I have a disclosure here to make, because this grant goes to state parks, is that right? Yeah, well, my son Brad was recently appointed as the Director of Conservation and Natural Resources by Governor Sandoval, and so State Parks reports to him. So I don't have any financial responsibility, thankfully for that. But I want to make sure that people know that there's a familiar relationship between myself and the Director of Conservation and Natural Resources. With that disclosure, I still intend to participate and vote on this matter. So, okay, anybody? All right, go.
Thank you, Mayor. Ann Bollinger, Open Space Administrator, for the record. Thank you for this opportunity for us to present an opportunity for 3 grant applications. At this time, this is only an application with the grant policy with the city. If any grant exceeds $50,000, it does require Board of Supervisors approval. If awarded, we would be back again to accept the grant. The Land and Water Conservation Grant application is managed by the National Park Service and locally administered through the Nevada Division of State Parks. This year, there's approximately $1 million available. Usually it's not quite that much, but they had some money left over from last year that they rolled over to this year. So that is good news for us. We are hoping to submit 3 grant applications. We know there are a few others throughout the state, but at this point, we just don't know. The grant applications are due to the state on March 10th, and they do require a 50% match. 50%. And through our presentations, Vern will start off with the presentations. He'll talk about the project and some of the match, and then I will as well.
For the record, Vern Cron, Senior Park Planner. The first project that we wish to apply for a grant for is called the Disc Golf Course Complex Site Improvement Projects. Just for everyone's refreshing, the site is located out in East Carson City. If you were to head out Highway 50 to Flint Drive, it is west of Flint Drive, and it also west of Rifle Range Road. It's approximately 100 acres. This particular grant is going to be looking at developing probably half that amount of property, and we'll talk a little bit more with the next slide related to what this grant what we'll be applying for with this particular grant application. The idea behind the first grant application for this project is to develop and build a parking lot that people would be able to go out to the site. Then from that point, we would develop 2 disc golf courses. We would have a tournament course, which is the blue lines on the display up there. And that would be a full-blown tournament course. The yellow markers on there are called the short course, or some people refer to it as the beginner's course, giving the opportunity for a variety of different recreational opportunities for both family and youth, as well as for those more passionate about the sport. So we're excited to provide this diversity with this project. We're excited to provide this diversity to the community, but this also has potential tourism implications too as well as we move forward with this project. The idea would be is that we are working with the Eagle Valley Disc Golf Association. They are there's some folks here. I have Greg Swift in the audience, as well as Del Martin, if you have any questions related to their involvement with the project. But the nice thing about this Land and Water Conservation Fund grant, unlike a lot of grants, is that you can go back 2 to 3 years to find match. A lot of grants won't let you use in-kind match until after the grant has been awarded. So between our pre-planning labor that they have helped with and staff time that we're able to allow toward this project, we were probably looking probably in excess of $35,000 worth of in-kind match that we're going to be able to use. In the staff report, you'll see that we are looking at approximately an $1,000 grant request. That may move up and down as we identify more match, so give me a little room on that particular grant amount when I come back. But the city has moved forward with, a while back, with a $10,000 seed money, for lack of a better term, to help get this project moving. And between our city in-kind match, even material matches, and with what the Disc Golf Association is willing to help with, we will probably have about $90,000 worth of in-kind match that goes toward this project. So we're really excited about our partners. We're really excited about this opportunity for the community. And that's what I have at this point to talk about that particular project. If there's, oh, yes, there we go.
We have a question up here.
Okay.
Oh, okay. Well, okay, go ahead.
You had more. I thought you were done.
Oh, well, I was getting there.
And she just realized you got another slide.
I had a few more slides. This is the current design of the parking lot that we are going to be looking at, and this is what our cost estimate is based off of. It is off of Rifle Range Road. It's a 50-stall parking lot. Right now, the current thinking is that we'll be able to do it in gravel. We will fence it with split rail fence around it to keep folks from driving off into the natural areas of it. We will, if things go well, we will have a porta potty enclosure, as well as some signage out there for not only the course but also for identifying the site. So that's what our goal is to get to that point with our in-kind matches and stuff. And for those who may not exactly know where this is at, we've got a couple just general slides at the site. Again, this is out by the rifle and pistol range and out by the landfill. So you can just see some of the terrain that we have out there. It's very diverse. That's part of the reason that this site was chosen, because of the diverse topography and the vegetation and the views. So this has been a great site. The board has taken action on this site, and the Planning Commission has also, so we're to that point now where we have all the city approvals we need. It's time to go try to find some money for this and get this done.
So just in general, I wanted to put on the record, the $100,000 grant would not complete this project.
Correct.
The Park Foundation, with the help of the Disc Golf Association, is working. Then we would still have to fund all of the catchers for the golf, at $1,000 a hole, right? I just wanted to be clear that everyone knew this doesn't finish it.
That is correct. This is not to build the entire complex. This is just basically to build the north part of the complex. The overall project scope is to have 2 tournament courses and the beginner's course, but this is going to get us a long ways there if we can come up with the money between the foundation's efforts and the Disc Golf Association's efforts, and what we can kind of find for in-kind match, through city resources. We're hopeful that we would be able to build this 50 stall parking lot with the north course and the tournament course, with a second phase coming later for other grant sources later on down the road.
Appreciate that. I just would really like, when we get the documents, that it's clear to the board this wouldn't finish it. And I wanted the public to realize that we still would be fundraising for the baskets and stuff. So just want to get it on the record.
Correct.
Can I get a clarification on that? Because you're saying it doesn't include the baskets, but I thought I just heard you say that it would for the north portion.
We are in the process of fundraising right now, so the idea would be it's not, we're trying to make this as encompassing as we can, and as we go out and as we do the donations, that will be added to the in-kind match as we go. So as we get more donations, more baskets, those will be something that we desperately need.
So the clarification is it does not include the baskets at this point.
But we've fundraised, we have like $4,825 in the foundation.
That's correct. That's correct.
Cash.
That is correct.
Not in kind, so we're trying to get $1,000 per basket. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't realize it didn't come on. So we have, like I said, I want to say $4,800 in basket cash right now in the foundation. So
correct.
I just want to clarify, we are fundraising for the baskets, which you then could use as match?
Yes, absolutely. And that $4,800 gets us part of the way there, but it doesn't get us all the way there for all the baskets we need. So we are having, so the idea behind it is what they can't raise, we will put into the grant and ask for.
So in the two north courses, there's how many baskets?
27.
27 total. And at 1,000, so you've got enough to cover 5 of the,
Roughly, yes.
of the 27, so you need another $22,000.
We need, let me take a quick look here. Yes, right now, based on the baskets that, the estimate that we have for baskets only, the baskets estimated are at $9,450. So we're about halfway there with what the foundation and the Eagle Valley Disc Golf Courses folks have raised to this point. We will need the additional money, and that will be a part of the grant application. Or if they raise it between now and when we get that, that's certainly something that could happen as well.
Okay, so the additional cost is an approximate $5,000, not $22,000.
That's based on this. Now, we have tee boxes and framing timbers, and we have a lot of those kind of things that we've included. But for the baskets themselves, we're talking about, roughly $9,000, $10,000 to put 27 baskets out there.
Let me ask the question a different way.
All right.
To complete the two north courses, how much money do we need total for everything?
Right now, what we're looking at is about $90,000.
Well, the grant's for 100, plus we have 100 in-kind, plus you just said we need another 5,000 for the basket, so that doesn't add up.
I'm obviously not communicating well on this one. Our preliminary cost estimates, which include the baskets, is roughly $100,000. We have $10,000 in roughly cash that the city has, plus we have another $90,000 in-kind match plus cash that the foundation has available through the Disc Golf Course Association. So between the cost of the project, we will be able to, at least in preliminary estimates, look at building the parking lot and both north courses. Does that help? Okay, I'm sorry I was so confusing.
Okay, go ahead, Vern. Go ahead. Jen, did you want to add anything? All right.
Yeah.
All right.
Maybe just in the future, I know we have the late material on the other item, but it would have been helpful to have the breakdown for the project, because for us to be able to approve these and know where we're going, it really is imperative to have the whole picture, because I don't want to approve something and then you have to come back and say, you know what, we still can't open the course because we're 12,000 short, we're 22,000 short. So if we could have that in the future, it would really help.
No, I'm sorry. That was something we didn't include in your packet, and I apologize.
Okay, next. Go ahead.
Okay. The next one is Ross Gold Park Playground Replacement Project. We have a situation where Ross Gold Park is basically wearing out. This particular playground was one of the first playgrounds that Scott Fahrenbrook was able to install when he first got here in 1994-95. So, we're talking a playground that's over 20 years old. The situation that we're running into is that it's just wearing out. It's also becoming more and more difficult as time goes on to find replacement parts for it. The manufacturers are not, after 20 years, not supporting the particular model of the playground that is out there currently. And sometimes we are in a situation where we just have to jury rig things out there. So as Ann's showing you right now, we have some of the conditions of what the actual playground looks like. It's starting to rust through in different spots, some exposed areas of metal. We have landings that are rusting out. It really is becoming a real safety concern for our department. The other issue out there at Ross Gold holistically is also ADA access. Not only we don't have an identifiable ADA access route from the parking lot to the playground, also the surfacing on the playground. Oh, thank you, and that's a good one. So what we have is we are not able to get from the parking lot to the playground on an ADA accessible route. We have physical barriers out there. We have playground equipment that with the 5-bar underneath of it that doesn't allow wheelchairs to get through it. And we have that mobility problem as indicated in the last slide, Ann, if you could go back. So that moves. So as kids come down the slides, it moves, and the wind blows, it moves. So that's another surface. In order to make this playground ADA accessible, it's really important for us to be able to now look at putting together a surface that will allow ADA access to that. The idea behind it is that we are going to, because of the projected cost on this particular playground replacement, and site improvements, so I want to make sure that it is clear. It's not just the playground. We are talking about site improvements to the parking lot, sidewalk to the playground, as well as other types of things associated with site development out there. Of course, this is the conceptual design that we've come up with and are basing our estimates off of. In order to make this work, we are trying to move toward finding multiple funding sources, so it's just not all on the city to try to fund this playground replacement project. We are looking at a residential construction tax, which will be a large portion of the cost that would be, or a large portion of the funding that would be used toward this. We're looking at, of course, the Land and Water Conservation Fund grant request that we are asking for today to apply for. We have already applied for a community development block grant to help with this. One of the nice things about the community development block grant is it does allow us to use funds to provide ADA access and improvements to this playground. And one of the other options we have available to us is the Great Western grant, or Great Western Game Time, and Great Western Playground also has a program that they offer to people to apply for. We can, if we are successful in that particular grant request, we would get an equipment discount that would save us some substantial money based on the purchase of the equipment that we have. So we're trying to put together a number of different funding sources so this project doesn't totally doesn't land completely in the coffers of the city lap responsibility from a funding perspective, and so we're trying to work that together, of course, with the multiple grant sources that we're going after. This is going to take us a little while to go through the grant cycles for all these grant applications. So we've got our first one in for the project. We'll hopefully go in we will go in March 10th if the board approves us to do that. We'll go in March 10th for Land and Water for this particular project, and then we'll keep moving forward trying to find funding ways to make this happen. So
yeah, I've got questions, but I think my questions are going to be asked here pretty quick.
Okay,
so, Supervisor Abel, go.
Vern, I noticed the term ADA accessible is used, but not universally accessible. So can you explain the difference, and why are we not going there since we're making such strides to try and improve this park?
Oh, very good question. When, at least in my description, when I use ADA access, I'm trying to make sure that we are being able to be compliant with the ADA guidelines so that we meet the legal qualifications to get there. In my project description, I do talk about, I believe, just double checking here, yeah, we want to be able to move toward a universally accessible playground. The idea, and it does talk about in my project description, it's a conceptual design that we're working with that has been developed to create an outdoor environment and experiences that addresses all the physical and social inclusion of all ages and abilities. The proposed playground will eliminate existing barriers, and the design moves beyond accessibility guidelines to provide an inclusive multi-generational play destination that encourages active, independent, and meaningful play for everyone. So we are moving in that direction. Yep. Mm-hmm.
Jennifer, jump in and correct me if I say anything that isn't accurate. I have some concerns about this issue. First, the total cost. I think you're doing an admirable job of looking for multiple funding sources to try to make this happen. I have some concerns because of the community development block grant request. That's a competitive grant, which you may not get. It also depends on additional residential construction tax, and plus getting this grant. So if we approve the application for this grant, I'd like to get some assurance that the use and acceptance of that grant is going to be contingent upon you getting these other funding sources, so that we don't back ourselves into a corner at the end of the day, and then we get forced into making a decision maybe that we don't want because we have backed ourselves into the corner. So Jennifer and I went back and forth about looking at the parks and playground equipment from a 30,000-foot view. And I wanted to get an idea of what our potential liability is for playground equipment replacement over the next, say, 10 years. So we currently don't have an inventory of our park playground equipment. So we don't actually know the today's condition. The estimate is that we have between 20 to 30 sets of playground equipment in our parks, and that the estimated replacement cost for the playground equipment per park can run $300,000 to $400,000. That gives us a pretty wide range, but that number is $6 million to $12 million that we would be asked to spend over, say, the next decade to replace this playground equipment. So I just want us to be aware of what this total number is and what this potential liability is, because that comes full circle for me to what are our priorities for capital expenditures for the city. If we have to choose between playground equipment and roads, I think that's a conversation that we need to have, and hopefully we will have at the upcoming strategic planning meeting that we're going to have next week. I'd like to get a better idea of what our priorities are before I start going down this road, to spending $6 to $12 million. So I just have some really serious concerns about that, and I think that although I personally am agreeable to submitting the application today, I do have a lot of concerns, and I'd go on the record today to say that I don't know that I would approve this at the end of the day once we know whether we're getting the grant or not, based on where the priority conversation comes back for the city.
So, Mr. Mayor, do you want me to address that briefly? So Supervisor Bunkowski, and really for all the board members, as part of our board retreat on January 24th, we're going to present our asset management program to date. And as some of you already know, we have gone through fairly extensively all the facility requirements. If you look at just our general fund capital requirements, you basically have four major categories. You have facilities, fleet, parks and recreation facilities, and finally the landfill. The landfill is, as you know, a general fund activity. So we're going to present at the board meeting, at the board retreat meeting, where we are to date in terms of our data collection for a long-term, sustainable asset management program, of which I know that has been a particular passion of yours. So parks, ever since Jen came aboard, she has made that a priority. She has made doing a detailed inventory and coming up with a sustainable plan that we can actually execute in terms of recapitalizing the park and recreation facilities throughout the city. So we're going to present to you where we are. We do have some funding options. I mean, I think we can get at this problem. We have a bit of an overhang, or as we used to say, the Naval Service, we've got quite a bit of a bow wave that has built up over the past decade or so. But I do think that we are going to be able to address what the requirements are. We're also going to talk about streets as well. So we're going to address in a holistic way, and I think in a long-term and a sustainable way, how we get at what is a very important challenge for us. And I think it's one that we can actually meet the requirements to. I don't know if you have anything you want to add, Jen.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. Mr. Mayor, Supervisor Bonkowski, we did have a good email conversation about playgrounds in general and our park asset inventory. I've been here 6 months now. I can tell you when I got here, there is no inventory of our assets. There's no condition index even further, which is more important about what condition our parks are in. And this playground is a great example of the aging infrastructure throughout Carson City's park system. And if we continue to ignore it and either not invest in it, we will be removing a lot of these facilities. This playground is on its last legs. It is a potential liability to the city. We don't want any child to get hurt at any of our parks, but we have to recognize that, and we have to have a diversification approach with funding. We don't have the funding to be able to replace all those playgrounds. Not all of our playgrounds are 20 to 30 years old like this particular playground. Would we need to replace all of that in the next 5 years? Until we have a good assessment of that, I can't tell you specifically. I've been to every park in our system. I can tell you this is in the top 5 of the worst playgrounds that we have. It's very unsafe, especially the design of it. It doesn't retain the surface material. It's a maintenance nightmare. It's very costly to take care of as it is. Investing in a new playground will reduce our operations and maintenance costs associated with the playground at this park. I can assure you with that. It'll not only be universally accessible, but this fiber blows out onto the turf. It gets in the mowers. The fiber is acidic. It kills the grass. There's a lot of other problems associated with that besides the safety factor. What I would like to do, currently we do not have a certified playground safety inspector on staff. I think that's a big mistake. We are getting this spring, we will have at least one, possibly two, if we can afford it, getting 2 of our park maintenance staff certified in playground safety. If we were to contract out an annual audit of our playground equipment for annual inspections, it would be $300 to $500 per playground. It's cheaper for us to certify one of our staff, keep them up to date on their certifications, and have inspections in-house rather than contract that service out. So I would like to pursue that. That way we make sure that we have facilities that are open and available, that are safe for the public to use. If we have safety issues, we can close those down. Those certified staff can do retrofits to playgrounds in a safe and thoughtful manner that meet current standards. So we need someone looking at our facilities from a professional approach. And we currently don't have that available on staff. But we do have a lot of staff that are interested and excited about that and want to learn. So I'm going to take advantage of that and try to harness that energy and that excitement and put it to good use.
Thank you, Jennifer. And I want to also say that I think you're doing a great job, and my concerns aren't with the job that you're doing or your staff is doing, and it's not about even whether or not we are not maintaining our assets. It's all about priority of capital expenditures, and we have to make some hard choices up here about where we can put the available money that we have. And so I just want to make sure that we're going to have a discussion, because this is a really big number, and there may be other things that we can put that money towards that that we'll get more of a benefit out of. And I just want to have that conversation because I don't know the answer to that.
And I appreciate that. And I think if we have a good inventory of all of our park assets, playgrounds included, we can take a hard look at ourselves. Some of the playgrounds and some of the facilities we have are very dated. The design is dated. We may not need to replace all of these facilities. There may be other recreation features that are less expensive that would actually provide greater value to the community. So that's just assuming if you took all these playgrounds out and you replace them. That may not necessarily be the case. After our asset inventory is done, I would like to try to present a priority for you and have some recommendations on how we can offset those costs in a plan. I won't be able to solve all of it, but at least give you guys some tools to be able to make those hard policy decisions. We do need playgrounds, we do need parks, but I realize the infrastructure in the entire community is aging and we have to address it as a community together. But if we can try to work together on solving that, I want to be able to give you that tool to be able to make those decisions.
I think that sounds like a great plan, and I look forward to seeing it.
It's a good discussion. It's helpful. Thank you. The question I would have is, if you get this grant, how long do you have to? How long can you hang on to it?
Land and Water gives you up to 5 years to do that. We're hoping, obviously, to get it done as quick as we can.
Okay. All right.
You have a comment?
Comment.
So let's play the picture that each of the funding sources does not come through. Is the project scalable to the amount of money that you do obtain?
The project is scalable, so let's say we get the Land and Water grant, but we don't receive the CDBG grant. let's say that. We can definitely scale back the project, we can remove the play equipment, and we can put in a smaller structure and do some minor improvements. It won't be the robust, low-maintenance project that you have proposed before you today, but we will be able to remove the existing play equipment and provide something that would be beneficial to the community.
Jen, would it still retain its universal accessibility even if scaled back? Because I think that's important. We don't have one park in this town that is, and we are the capital city.
Correct, Supervisor, about it. And it's very tragic that we don't have that opportunity. We can do our best to provide universally accessible components. It wouldn't be as robust, obviously. We have some components on this proposed playground that are actually available for adults. There's a lot of adults with severe developmental challenges that would really use and appreciate this type of facility. So that's the design that Vern has worked with the manufacturer and the vision in mind. So we still could provide universally accessible amenities. We would still do the rubberized surfacing. We are not going to do 5-bar playgrounds anymore. We're just not. I don't want to install things that require numerous maintenance expenses and are costly and eventually become unsafe. It's better to have that initial investment, do it right, use the rubberized surfacing. I will say Land and Water Conservation Funds, when I was at Washoe County, received numerous grants for playground projects. That committee loves this. They understand the need to reduce operation and maintenance, the safety issue, and the opportunity for universally accessible opportunities. So they're very supportive in the region of funding this type of project, and I think our chances are very good.
Supervisor Barrett.
Yeah, let's go back to the 30,000-foot bird's eye view that Brad was talking about. And let me ask you, in terms of what you talked about regarding assessing everything you have, I'm going to assume, or at least ask you, whether you're going to look at that in terms of conversion. Obviously, you've kind of indicated you would, getting rid of a playground here or there and utilizing our parks different. Is that the way you're approaching this, to look at how your parks are utilized and how they're going to be used in the future? And a constituent who talked to me during the campaign comes to mind who said, nobody uses the tennis courts over there behind the community center right here much anymore. Things like that. Are you going to look to change out to less costly things?
Thank you, Supervisor Barrett. I think this is all sort of inclusive and everything ties together. I will tell you, our asset inventory is not even close to complete. It takes a very long time. I want the same staff conducting the entire department's asset inventory, so we're looking at it from the same view. If we had 20 different people completing that task, what I think is unsafe or deteriorating may not be the same as someone else. So we have consistent criteria. We're following the lead of what facilities is doing in Public Works. Same format, same ranking of all those facilities and condition. So that way you're seeing the same type of numbers, same explanation. While we're out conducting this, we definitely need to look at underutilization of facilities. And that's a great thing to look at. One thing that's huge right now is pickleball, and tennis is sort of a waning sport. So even just converting existing tennis facilities over to pickleball, we have an active pickleball group in the community. They're regional. They're very big into fundraising, and they are even seeking us out for additional facilities. So for that one example, there might be, a retrofit of a facility that we could provide that's not being utilized and make it just with some minor investment, even with a partner to fund that, to make it, useful again. But we do need to look at that. There's a lot of facilities that I think, there are some neighborhood parks in areas they thought would be very robust and developed and didn't really pan out. The park was built first, the development didn't build out. There's a lot of things we can do, and that's probably ties into updating our master plan overall for the department. Updating each park should have a park master plan, not all of them do, but that's involving the public in that conversation as well.
Thank you.
Jennifer, do you have the ability to, or are you currently looking for private foundation grants like Pennington?
Yes. I've already approached a couple of foundations already with some ideas and proposals, and I had staff come up with some ideas. it would be really helpful if I had this asset inventory so I knew exactly where our priorities are, because unfortunately it's either complaint-driven, incident-driven right now, or just what I'm seeing on a frequent basis that, are reoccurring problems. We have a lot of needs, but we will be coming up with, after we can get through identifying a fee schedule and our asset inventory and a lot of other things, that we have a lot of priorities right now, and it's just kind of trying to do one thing at a time, but having a funding strategy for the department, because we can't rely on the general fund. It's just not realistic. So we have to get creative, and we have to use partners, and that's through in-kind services and diversification of funding.
Other questions on this before we go to the next? Okay, Vern, who's going to do it? Open space.
The third application proposal is for the 50% acquisition cost of 20 acres owned by Michael Fagan. This item has been presented to the Board of Supervisors as well as our advisory committees in the past. I would like to really thank Mr. Fagan for his patience. He first approached staff 2.5 years ago for acquisition of this property. At that time, we didn't have the funding, and Michael Fagan said he was open to trade of any other parcels in Carson City. So we really thank him for his patience. We went through the exercise of identifying parcels. That was one of the motions from the board, is to identify options and bring it back to the board. I did that last July with one parcel. It was located on Karen Drive. The board approved the next steps to go forward. I did. I purchased the preliminary title report. I learned from that report that we cannot dispose of that property. So I have exhausted all of our options for any trade. Since that time, thankfully with our sales tax, our budget has been increasing, and the Open Space Advisory Committee has been adding funds to our land acquisition account. We now have at least 50% match that we can apply to the Land and Water Conservation Fund. This property is located up on Highway 50 going west for the board and for the public. It's near the Clear Creek interchange. There's many benefits of this property. The blue color in this map is open space, so it is adjacent to what we already own. Other properties that we're looking at, and the area I'm highlighting in the area is the Old Woods Ranch. We're looking at purchasing a conservation easement, which would complete the conservation easement on this entire alpine meadow. Being right next to all this undeveloped open space is great for wildlife habitat and migration routes. Being located right near the Clear Creek interchange, it is our hope to have a north-south trail that connects to Douglas County, and coming through this parcel, the topography there is more gentle than the other parcels adjacent to it. So our hope would be to travel across this property and finding some route to continue north, linking up to Kings Canyon and the Asha Kings Trail. I have had initial conversations with the Assistant Chief of Multimodal Planning at NDOT about the use of the underpass at Clear Creek. He said yes. So by the time of this grant application, I at least hope to have a letter at minimum, getting that approval from NDOT, if not other agreements to that effect, that we can use that underpass for recreation purposes. He did say the traffic volume and traffic speeds are what allow us to use that underpass. Again, on this map, Michael Fagan's parcel is located just to the east of our proposed alignment, but the topography here, the dotted lines are proposed. And so we can move that based on topography, and that is what we are looking at doing. And I'm working with our trail advocates in town to identify proposed alignments. And then on the ground, what does this property look like? Just natural native vegetation. There is a mix of Jeffrey pine, ponderosa pine. So in addition to the Land and Water Conservation Grant, I'm keeping my options open as well. I have had discussions with the Nevada Division of Forestry about applying to a community forest and open space grant program. We meet all the criteria except one that's weak. but that could be where we fall. Because it is a forest grant, the property is required to have 75% forest cover or the potential, and we have about 20 to 25%. So I'm still working through those details with them. This grant is probably my better option of the two.
Go out and plant a bunch of trees.
We will work with many Eagle Scouts to help us do that.
All right.
Are there any questions?
Questions on this issue? I don't see any. John, got to go. Supervisor Barrett.
Yeah, what would the nature of the trail be? Just walking or walking, biking, what?
It would be a non-motorized, so walking, mountain bike riding, and equestrian, single-track native surface.
All right. Public comment? Anybody want to weigh in? Greg? Disc golf. Thought you guys could just play out in the sagebrush. Didn't have to have all this money, you know?
Yeah.
Huh?
Hi, Mayor and board members. Greg Swift, Eagle Valley Disc Golf Association. You are correct in what you just said. We basically are just playing in the natural environment. So I wanted to assure all the board members that if successful on this grant, we will be up and running. This is what we need. We put in the hours. Excuse me, my voice is off today, but with the 50% matching, we have a lot of hours invested. We've been doing this for many years. I just wanted you to know that those estimates are very accurate. The baskets themselves are not the major expense. If we can get that parking lot built, that north section is very viable. We won't be coming back. It's low maintenance, so the ongoing viability of the course is going to be great. And again, it attracts lots of different age groups. It's going to be good for the youth. It's very inexpensive. We can draw tournaments if we do it right. So I wanted to tell Brad, with this grant, we will have the course running. It'll be some of the amenities that, you know, like a shade structure to draw bigger tournaments that we will fundraise later. But I just wanted everybody to know that disc golf, I think all these projects are, as a citizen, are very important for the community. But I just wanted to assure from the disc golf course aspect that this will be what we need to finally realize our vision. And we're not going to need additional funds. So just to rest your minds.
Yes.
Yes, John.
I've watched this from that side with you guys as you've moved forward. Is there any market indication of how many tournaments you can draw and how many people would come to the tournaments in, say, an average year?
Yes, that's I'd say quarterly we could have tournaments, so that'd be like 4 a year. Roughly speaking, up to 200 people participate in tournaments. I'd say usually 144. But again, at build out, if we have the 2 tournament courses, we're going to be able to attract some big tournaments. So that part, I'd say roughly speaking, 150 people participate, and that would be 4 times a year. And that's just an estimate. You can have more local tournaments, but generally speaking, you know, at least 2 to 4 a year. You could have big tournaments that are PDGA approved.
Thank you.
Okay, other public comment?
Thank you.
Board? Interesting discussion. Where do we want to go with this?
I'll make a motion.
Motion's in order.
Okay. I move to authorize the Parks, Recreation, and Open Space Department to submit 3 separate Land and Water Conservation Fund grant applications for the following projects: the disc golf course complex site improvements, the Roscold Park playground replacement, and purchase through a fee title acquisition 20 acres of land along U.S. Highway 50 near the Clear Creek interchange, APN 007-051-81, from Michael W. Fagan for open space and passive recreation purposes.
Second.
Motion, a couple seconds on the motion. Discussion. Vern, I assume on the discussion side, and Jennifer, you're well aware of our concerns about stepping out ahead of ourselves and getting caught in a corner. Okay, don't put us there. Don't put us there, all right?
So on discussion?
Discussion.
Just so on discussion, the reason I'm going to support this is certainly because I've worked hard through Parks and Recreation, and I have a clear understanding of where you're trying to go. But also, there are no general fund dollars dedicated into any of these projects. And so I don't think we're going to get locked in on this one. And so I agree with Brad and everybody on the bigger picture, though. So I just wanted to put that on the record.
What she said.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay, all right. On a motion to further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Carried unanimous. Thank you very much. Thanks, Vernon. Thanks, Jen. And, okay, let's take up a related issue. This is for potential authorization of $86,643 in residential construction tax for the potential construction of a new playground at Ross Gold.
Yes.
Add anything you want to add here?
Just real quick, this is, again, as we talked about, part of the funding strategy in our last agenda item we approached. As a part of that funding strategy, we were asking that $86,643 in residential construction tax be set aside for the playground is what we're asking for.
Okay. Brad.
Specifically the playground or for the park improvements in general?
The intent behind this is that if the primary use of the money would be for the playground. However, if we're able to be successful with some of our other grant funding sources, we would then use whatever leftover money in residential construction tax either for a project at Ross Gold or for somewhere else in the system. What's that?
I think
Yeah, it would be
it's
designated to
Project
that
Ross
park.
Gold.
Ross Gold, which would be fine. We have plenty of needs there, so.
I just want to make sure, again, that that if we approve this request, that it's broad enough that we can use it. For instance, if we can't replace all of the playground equipment the way we've just discussed, and we have to scale it back, that we can still use this money for the improvements in the park, which is the asphalt, the sidewalks, the trails, the other things that are in there. And then, again, I would just reiterate that if we don't get all of the funding from all of the funding sources, then I'd like to have the ability to revisit this and not have it come back in the 11th hour as a request for more funds because we have to move this project forward.
Understood.
I just want to echo what Brad said because CDBG is going to be a heavy lift, as you probably are aware. And I don't think there's any general fund dollars to come for that, from my perspective.
Okay.
We understand. We understand.
All right. Scratching for every bit you can. That's okay. That's okay. That's
We
good.
just have to, like you said, we
That's all
just
right.
have to scratch for everything we can get. and
Yeah, as
we're
I said,
trying.
just don't
We're
put us
trying.
in a box. I think that's what Supervisor Minkowski and all of us up here are saying. So, all right, public comment. Anybody? I don't see any motions in order.
Make a motion.
Supervisor
Okay.
Bagwell, go.
I move to authorize $86,643 in residential construction tax for the Ross Gold Park project.
There's a motion and a second on the motion. Discussion. Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Carried unanimous. Thanks very much, folks. Let's take up item 13. This is potential consent to assignment of surface water rights from the Robert Lauren Anderson Trust to Limited Liability Company to Crandall Anderson. This is our contractual requirement that we have to consent to a transfer.
Correct. It's a name change between the trust to an LLC. Iris Yola is here, our deputy DA and opposing counsel as well, if you have any questions.
Okay, look, what are we giving up here? Anything?
We're not giving up anything there.
All right, and the consent has to be, can't be unreasonably withheld, right?
That's correct, Mayor.
All right, can we ask for money for it? No?
I don't believe that would be a good thing to do.
Big fat no.
Big fat no. All right, Supervisor Abel, go.
I just have a question on this. This is just a transfer between the two entities, but basically, at some point in time, will those water rights be sold? And does Carson City have access to those, and what do those cost?
I did speak with counsel, Ms. Jennifer May. She was intending to be here for this, so I don't know, is she, there you are. Anyway, we had a conversation. It's my understanding that they do not intend to sell in the near future, but that can be a discussion that we have later down the road, because I think Carson City would be, it would be good for Carson City to pursue that.
I discussed the issue with my client as well, who's present here today, Mickey Anderson. And assuming that the transfer is approved, the LLC would be willing to discuss possibly entering into an option with the city if there's any interest. So that's a conversation that I think we could have down the road.
Thank you.
Yeah, I would just note that this is very typical contractual language. This is basically just an administrative ratification that we're looking at today. And to answer Karen's question about the price of water, it's a commodity. It fluctuates daily.
It's fluid.
Oh, good.
All right, further questions? I think we understand what's going on here. I don't mean to give it short shrift. Public comment? Anybody? Mr. Kittis.
Mayor, Supervisors, Bruce Kittis, resident, Carson City. I spoke at the acquisition hearing in 2007 and was in favor of it. At that time, Vittler Water had the option to buy the water. And at that time, because the real estate market was booming out in Dayton, the water rights were up in the 20,000 range for purchase. And in fact, at that time I said that the city was paying $3.5 million for this 86 acres, and that Vittler was getting a hell of a good deal on their water rights. I didn't know what the price was, but the least they could do would be to subsidize Carson City $500,000 help on the purchase price. Well, of course, as it turned out, because the real estate market, Vittler never exercised their option, so that the seller, the Anderson, and the purchase contract provided for this eventual transfer of trustee, has the right to use their water on the property. And the reason they want to do that is that if the city was to apply water, and this goes into the affluent situation because that was discussed at the meeting, one of the reasons for the purchase, was that use it or lose it. So if the rancher that owns the water rights can't use the water on the property, they could lose their alpine water rights. Okay. And at that time, I'm not sure whether it was at this meeting or the 2010 meeting when the city purchased the Girard property, and together they're I think it's 478 acres. One of the ranchers said the water rights are worth more than what you're paying for the property. So the city paid $3.5 million for the 86 acres and $3.7 million for the Girard property. And in both cases, the ranchers retain the water rights and can use the water rights so they don't lose it. And so that goes back to the question that Supervisor Abboud asked, and which my interest is because I think someday the city will need the property for affluent, you're only discussing the Anderson, but the subject is the same for Girard. Do the purchase agreements, there's something in there about 4 years, do the existing agreements enable the ranchers to continue to use the water rights, to use their water on the property, which would postpone the city being able to use it for affluent if you need it. And given the city has purchased a lot of water rights from Minden now, I don't know why the city would be in the market to buy water. So really you're waiting for the building boom out in Dayton in order for the need for those water rights to be purchased, and they are in the Dayton segment of it. But anyway, the main purpose for my question is to explain the full story, that both those ranchers have to retain their water right, have to use their water on the property in order for beneficial use. The water belongs, yeah. So do the contracts we have permit the continued use of their water on the 478 acres? And I believe there's about 478 acre-feet of water on both parcels. Thank you.
Okay. Sure, go.
Yeah, so as Mr. Orkidis said, the Old Buzzies Ranch. I want to make sure I'm not getting too far off the agenda. So if I do, I hope the attorneys will alert me. The Old Buzzies Ranch was acquired in 2 transactions. One with the Anderson Trust, and that's the item here today, the 86 acres, and then the second, more than 400 acres from James Gerard. In both instances, yes, the water was extremely more expensive than the land. We just could not afford it. But knowing that, it was included in both purchase and sale agreements, so the purchase and sale for James Gerard looks very similar to this, that as long as they hold water rights, they reserve the right to use them on the land and continue irrigation. Because with the state engineer, if you don't use your water rights, you risk losing them. And then so for us, it was also a mutual benefit of having a land manager on the land and continue the agricultural business. And so the next step forward, as the agreement says, is upon the sale of the water rights, each party can remain on the land up to 4 years to help them transition out of their business. But the city also has to find water one way or another to put on the land. That is also in our agreement with the state of Nevada through the Question 1 program that helped purchase these lands as well. And also, so as you're aware, I have been had talks with Public Works, so we know this question, I don't want to say problem, this issue is out there that we do need to find water one way or another. And so I'm working with Public Works as well. And you'll see that on our work plan for 2017 as well.
So I would just note, though, that this is an assignment of the water rights between related parties. This is not a sale of the water rights, so it doesn't affect the ability of the owner of the water rights to use it on the property.
Correct.
Okay. Also, I think there's some confusion about what, I know, Bruce, you mentioned about buying water rights from Minden. My understanding was the water rights we bought from Minden, the Minden water rights were going to go away because they couldn't put them to beneficial use. So the acquisition was part of our ability to help build the infrastructure to move water here. And it wasn't for water rights necessarily for themselves. It was part of a transaction to move water here. So, okay. All right. Further public comment. Board, we okay? Routine matter? Okay. On the motion, go.
I move to consent to the assignment of the surface water rights and responsibilities pursuant to the purchase and sale agreement for APN 010-071-25 as outlined in the agreement from the Lauren Anderson Trust to the Crandall Anderson LLC, and to authorize the mayor and Ms. Bollinger to sign the consent agreement on behalf of the city.
Second.
Motion and a couple seconds on the motion. Discussion. Hearing none. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Carried unanimous. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Anderson. Okay. Jennifer.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. All right. Let's take up planning. 14?
14.
Second reading on signs. Lee, anything changed? You fixed it up from what we put on the last time?
Good morning, Lee Plemmel, Community Development. This is second reading of the of the ordinance amending the sign code related to the, call it the Western Nevada College sign and message center display signs. We've had no comments or changes since first reading. We made the corrections and the changes that were made by the board at first reading, and they're incorporated into this version.
Board, I think my reading of it, they've done that. So, okay, on the motion, on second reading, motion's in order. Let me ask public comment. Anybody want to weigh in? I don't see any. Okay, go.
We need an ordinance number.
2017-1.
I move to adopt Bill Number 101 on second reading, ordinance number 2017-1, an ordinance amending Title 18, Appendix Carson City Development Standards by amending Divisions 4, Signs, Chapter 4.4, Administration, Section 4.47, Exemptions by adding thereto a new subsection, 4.4.7.w, which exempts from the division certain off-premise electronic message display signs, amending Title 18, Appendix Carson City Development Standards by amending Divisions 4, Signs, Chapter 4.6, General Regulations and Standards, by adding a new section, 4.6.6, that sets forth standards for electronic message display signs based on the findings contained in the staff report.
Motion, a couple seconds on the motion discussion. Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Carried unanimous. Let's take up the next second reading one. This is on the multifamily change the zoning from single-family 1 acre to multifamily apartment on property located at 150 East Roland and 4810 Snyder Avenue, APN 009-197-02, 009-197-03. Anything, any comments? Public comment? Motion's in order.
I move to adopt Bill Number 102 on second reading, ordinance number 2017-2, an ordinance to change the zoning from single-family 1 acre to multifamily apartment on property located at 150 East Roland and 4810 Snyder Avenue, APN 009-197-02 and 009-197-03, based on the findings contained in the staff report.
Motion, a couple seconds on the motion discussion. Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Carried unanimous. Okay, let's take up another second reading. This is on the Marijuana Act. This is on second reading to impose a moratorium for a period of up to 180 days on the acceptance and processing and planning or other applications for construction or operation of new marijuana establishments. This is on second reading. Any changes that you know of?
No changes since first reading.
Board, before I take public comment, anybody? Mr. Adler, you're up. Public comment.
Hello, my name is Will Adler. I represent two of the groups that have dispensaries and one of the cultivation facilities here. And I just want to say this is a well thought out, well-structured proposal. It does everything it needs to do and is flexible enough to adapt as the state adapts, because marijuana moves in dog years and it's moving quickly. We were just recently mentioned in the governor's State of the State address, and it is going to be part of his major budget address as well. So that puts a pretty fast timeline on, getting recreational marijuana off the ground, and it could be, regulations in the bag by June even. So this, something that will be brought up and need to be flexible and assessed in real time. So, it's well done, well structured, and well written. So I have no complaints, and I can answer any questions about anything else that might come up, because we do have 18 BDRs filed for marijuana medically and recreationally for the Nevada legislature coming up as well. So local ordinances may need to change medically on top of that before this moratorium's even up. So I might be back here before you know it.
Okay. All right, Mr. Adler. Thank you. All right. Any other public comment? Seeing none, motion's in order. So, who wants to do it? You have questions? No?
Okay.
Okay.
I'll make a motion.
Go.
I move to adopt Bill Number 103 on second reading, ordinance number 2017-3, an ordinance declaring a moratorium for a period of up to 180 days with the ability to extend it by resolution for up to an additional 60 days on the acceptance and processing of planning or other applications for construction or operation of new marijuana establishments based on the findings contained in the staff report.
There's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
There's a motion and a second on the motion. Discussion. Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Carried unanimous. Thank you very much. All right, let's take up Master Plan Amendment Goal 1.5E for above-ground utility corridors. Why don't you talk about it, and why haven't we done this in the past?
We didn't have to in the past.
Okay, when did the law change on it?
2 years ago, I believe.
Okay. All right.
So NRS 278-165 says that we have to include in our master plan an above-ground utility plan. It says in formulating that plan, we have to coordinate with our neighboring jurisdictions, BLM and the Nevada Department of Energy. We have done that. With the exception of Washoe County, nobody has above-ground utility corridors that intersects, if you will, with Carson City. In the case of Washoe County, those are existing corridors. They're not proposed corridors, so you do not need to map those. You only have to have a plan for proposed corridors. Sierra Pacific Power has advised there are no plans for proposed above-ground corridors in Carson. Therefore, we are recommending simply amending Goal 1.5E, which currently says that we will coordinate with Sierra Pacific Power and with Southwest Gas to add the wording that says that goal includes the designation of above-ground utility corridors on the land use map consistent with NRS 278-165. Should in the future you have a request for an above-ground utility corridor, you would review it as an amendment to the master plan, looking at the 4 findings that are required to amend the master plan. The Planning Commission reviewed this request at their meeting of December 21st, 2016, and recommended approval through their resolution by a vote of 6-0, 1 absent, and staff is recommending that the master plan be amended as proposed. We have been able to make the findings, and I can answer questions.
So why don't we have an amendment that says no overhead transmission?
We can't do that. We have to have a process in place to accommodate above-ground utility corridors. Now, should you get a request for an above-ground utility corridor and you're not able to make the required findings of the master plan, then it would be appropriate to deny that request. But we need to have a process in place, and in putting that process in place, we have to consider our neighboring jurisdictions, BLM, Department of Energy. The positive takeaway is I'm not before you today suggesting that we put it on the map. Just that we have we amend a goal and that we have a process.
All right, we got a lot of questions up here. We'll go this way.
I just want to go on the record and say that, first of all, we live in a high wind-prone area. Second of all, the various agencies involved always take the path of least resistance. And so, of course, going above ground is the easier way to go. But personally, I'm opposed to that in this area. I just think it creates problems down the road that if done right the first time, would not create problems.
Well, I agree with Karen's comments. My question is, did we, since we're amending, what is it, 1.5E, did we change the name of the utility company?
I did not, because in the, I want to say it's Title 15, I don't think it is. There is a section, it might be Title 5, of the code that talks about all the franchise agreements, and it's referred to in the code as Sierra Pacific, so I kept the wording the same. I did not change it. I can certainly look into if that's no longer the legal name and we need to call it Nevada Energy. But right now, that's how the code, the master plan reads, and it's how the franchise agreement language reads.
Okay, we should at least look into it to make sure we don't have any issues in the future.
That really was my comment, is shouldn't it just be changed to utility companies or something, and then we don't have to deal with it?
Right.
So that the title on 1.5E should be utility companies. And then you don't have to worry about name changes in the future, or new companies coming in, or all of those kind of things. So just
Right, and I don't mean to have a dialogue on it. I just want to mention that my hesitation hearing that is that utility companies are telephone, they're cable, they're a lot
to be
of franchise.
applicable to the-
Right, and so
to the
I just think
document.
that would be a substantive change as opposed to just Southwest Gas and electricity.
But Sierra Pacific doesn't exist. And it would only be utility companies that met the requirement of this section. So anyway, all right. utility companies.
This is a terrible question to ask, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Is there a poison pill we could put in here that would force undergrounding?
We could look at
I mean, it seems to me
changing
that-
the wording. I could bring it back to your next meeting, and the wording could include something to the effect of including an additional finding that the applicant must demonstrate that undergrounding of utilities is not a feasible option. And you'd have to make that finding, so we can certainly look at adding an additional finding.
With criteria that definitely has some base to it. As I said, the path of least resistance, they can always make it sound like, oh, well, we can't do this, but, that's not realistic.
So I want to add, for this NRS, this is relating to big utility corridors. This is the stuff that goes across BLM and goes from one end of the county to the other. This isn't the local stuff that goes down the streets. Although it may, if that ends up being one of these major corridors, but this is not subverting the franchise agreement that this Board of Supervisors or that the city is already into with the company. So I don't think there's something you can do here to change the franchise agreement that allows them to do overhead under whatever circumstances that the franchise agreement already allows. So, and I believe that NRS getting into it, that the intent of these corridors is to allow them specifically to do overhead. I think that's the intent of the legislation for these large utility. I say large; it's the high power. These are the big transmission lines.
So, Mr. Mayor, your poison pill would be directed towards getting them underground. Am I reading you correctly?
Yeah, and I use the word poison pill, but it's kind of, we've been through the debate before about, whether underground, reminds me of the one down Solomon Street, where we have the towers down there, and it always comes up, that, well, it's easier to go above ground, it's too costly to go underground, and that, and then you get into the bigger debate as to whether or not, it's the right thing to do for your community, and other, or we spend on other jurisdictions' money, yada, yada, the whole thing, and so the idea would be to, if we can't do anything with the franchise, I don't know what good it does to add language, but, I'd just like the bell to be rung that, and I was looking at the statute here. Does the statute say the size of transmission lines?
Voltage or something, right?
Mr. Mayor, I didn't bring the NRS provision with me. My recollection is the term was defined to identify the level, I want to say wattage, and that's probably wrong, but as Lee indicated, I think the objective is to look at large carriers and to make sure no municipality will block the passage through their jurisdiction. And again, we came up with the minimum to comply with state law.
Okay, well, I guess, it doesn't hurt to add what you just added there. I mean, if we can do, I know it doesn't substantively change it away. Well, I shouldn't say that, but add it if we can. That's my 2 cents. So, John, Supervisor Barrett.
I just wanted on the record that I live with a Mrs. Barrett who would wholeheartedly go for underground utilities.
You want to wordsmith it and take a look at the name and then bring it right back?
I'll do it. So I think we can add a sentence to the end of goal point 1.5E, which states, in the case of consideration of above-ground utility corridors, the board shall make a finding that a below-ground option is not a feasible option, or something. Actually, give me a couple minutes. Let me work. I don't like how that sounds.
Bring it back and just wordsmith it a little bit and bring it back.
Okay, I can do that. We're 2 years down the road. I'm good.
Yeah, we got it. Okay. So unless there's an objection, we'll just bring it back, okay, Hope? No, we got you. Okay. And I applaud you for picking up on the statute, that tells us we got to do something, we haven't done it. I mean, okay. All right, kiddo. All right. Let's take up, where are we then next?
He's already queued
Work
it up.
program.
Boy, he's ready.
All right, work programs. This is item 14 Echo. Accept the Carson City Master Plan Annual Report.
Right. And again, Lee Plumel Community Development. This item is scheduled for the Board of Supervisors annually, and per NRS, the zoning section of NRS, the Planning Commission is required to send recommendations to you annually in an endeavor to promote the public interest and understanding of the master plan. So again, this annual report is kind of in the format that we've had it over the past years. You have the report with you. We generally take this opportunity not only to do a kind of a high-level overview of the master plan, but look at growth projections and how the master plan has impacted growth. And we know we also have growth management that we bring to the board around July. So every 6 months or so, you get a similar presentation regarding growth projections and past history. Also tonight, we have a joint meeting with the Board of Supervisors at which I'm going to present some of this same information, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it today, but I do have some recommendations from the Planning Commission going forward over the next year regarding some implementation strategies. The master plan is a long-term document. It can be updated periodically. It's certainly reviewed at least at a relatively high level annually here in Carson City. Our current master plan provides for land use to accommodate a population in Carson City of about 75 to 80,000. I do have these graphs that I have in this presentation are updated from the Planning Commission staff report that was in November, so these now are through the year projections. Every couple years we get a population projection from the demographer that's in the black line, kind of underneath the red line there. Varies over the years depending on the current economy and other things, but right now the demographer's projections probably at the lower level, and kind of looking at what we have coming up. As long as things keep going the way they are with growth, we're probably on the projected level of that higher projection right now if things continue to develop as they have been. But even at that level, we get out to kind of our build-out population of 75,000 in the year 2050 or later. Again, some of this really clearly obvious things. We've had a lot more development recently than we have in past years. In fact, since 2006, this table is our the number of residential permits, and we expect that to continue in 2017. Again, this is something in particular I'll talk more about tonight. And then with the planning applications, and just so this is kind of the general activity of zoning applications and planning and things coming forward. Obviously, as we've come out of the recession, those have increased as well, which just leads me to some of the conclusions that the Planning Commission has agreed with. And then my final slide will be some recommendations. As I said at the beginning, the master plan is a long-term document that provides land use designations and policies to accommodate that growth over the next 30 to 50 years. Again, that's not to say we don't ever need to do anything with the master plan for 30 to 50 years, but it is in place. Not much has occurred. There have been very few requests for master plan amendments. In fact, going back, all the master plan amendments we've had since the adoption almost all relate to either public lands that have transferred ownership and fixing those. The Lampa Ranch was one which was specifically identified in the master plan as needing a master plan amendment. And then the other one would be, so there's only actually been a request for that 5.6 acres in Vintage has been the only property owner initiated request. So here's our plan and the recommendations going forward in 2017. So with the Planning Commission in particular, I think there was a real focus on going back and taking a little more time to look at the master plan without going into what I call a full master plan update That's a citywide comprehensive update, but I think we want to spend some more time with the Planning Commission on training and understanding the master plan better in 2017. So with the first one being just to continue to pursue implementation strategies that are in the action plan. As part of your report, you see the full list of things. There's a lot of things that continue to be done. Some of the departments have updated some of those that are in there. There's a whole list of things that are done each year that aren't listed in there. And as we go through your strategic planning process, we want to start to tie those together, and we look at tying those together through the strategic plan and our goals for the next year. A couple things specific to the Planning Commission is provide a training session for them regarding master plans, and I think our goal would be to walk through in a little bit more detail. Maybe start with master plan, call it a master plan 101 session about what a master plan is and go through a little time with them. Then maybe as a follow-up to that, go through some various sections of the master plan to allow them to get into a little more detail section by section without taking too much time in any given month. But similar to what the Parks and Rec Commission did last year with their Parks and Recreation Commission master plan. We're having the joint meeting tonight. We thought it was be a really good idea to bring the school district to the Planning Commission to give the similar projection, because as the Planning Commission sees growth occur, the question always comes up, well, what are they going to do about schools? Well, as with tonight, they do have a capital improvements plan, so we'll bring that presentation to the Planning Commission. And also there was a request and a good idea that we'll have work with Michael Saloga in the Office of Business Development to provide an economic development report to the Planning Commission this year. So those are the recommendations that we're bringing forward, and just asking you to accept the report and recommendations in there for your consideration as you move forward in 2017 to develop a strategic plan. So I'll conclude my presentation with that.
Are they recommending that we revisit the master plan?
They are not recommending a complete review of the master plan at this point. Generally, the recommendation is that the master plan as it's in place is a valid policy document within which we can, if there are issues, we can address through zoning or other code amendments.
Lee, my one question, in your report, you did allude to the fact that maybe small parts of the master plan, the Planning Commission might have a look at. What sorts of issues do you intend that over the course of this year that they take a look at?
Without going through it, I don't have a lot of specifics. I think we would walk through and identify those through a process of stepping through the master plan and understanding it. I think one of the areas where we might look at would be looking at specific plan areas or specific areas on the map. In your report, it's page 4 of your report, I did identify one area that has come up within the V&T specific plan. It's been a past issue to reevaluate the V&T specific plan generally, because the plan has changed for the railroad. The depot location has changed, but there's also some private property in there that had some issues through the development process that might be something that we look at and say maybe it's time to look at that area as a whole. So, but it would be those types of issues I would anticipate.
Great, and I do want to say that I was really pleased to see the recommendation to have economic development report to the Planning Commission. Thank you.
Okay, John, Supervisor Barrett.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Lee, you say that the Planning Commission isn't recommending a complete overhaul. Was anybody on it speaking in that regard, or was there any talk of it at the Planning Commission level?
No, there was no real discussion of that.
And what is your feeling on that as a professional planner?
So as I've presented it in this report and over the years, actually I think the lack of development and the lack of changes because of the recession has probably extended the life of the master plan. I mean, some have said maybe it changed it when it needs to be reevaluated because of that. I see it differently, that the basic, it's a pretty small document. It's not detailed. It's a policy document. The policies are still valid to help guide us through any zone changes that are needed. And really that, as development occurs, I think we may start to see pressure coming up in the next, so I noted that there's only been the 5.6 acres, and I'm not suggesting that over the next 10 years that we're only going to see another 5 acres, but I think now that development is starting to occur, we may start to see those pressures to make changes in certain areas, at which time those things should be looked at. So I don't see a need for a complete overhaul, but I think it needs to continue to be monitored as we do start to see new development pressure in the next couple of years.
As a professional planner, what do you think is the time frame between complete overhauls? Or does that depend on circumstances?
It does depend on the circumstances. So in Nevada, we don't have a legal requirement to do that within any certain time frame. Some communities self-impose time frames in which they'll do that. 10 years is often used and a pretty good benchmark, which is what we're at now. However, again, I think because there hasn't been much change to anything going on, I think that has been pushed out at least a few years at this point.
Would you think 15 years is getting a little long or not?
We'll see what happens over the next 5 years, but yeah, with 15 years would be a longer period.
Having observed this stuff over a long period of time in other communities as well as this one, it seems to me that the problem is you're on a roller coaster. You don't have the money to do it during a recession also, and it's not a cheap, it's a heavy lift financially. We have other needs to address, but it would seem to me, and I'd like to put this on record, that going beyond 15 years in a document that really looks out 30 is a little bit long in the tooth. So I'm just putting everybody on notice. I'll be looking towards that before I'm done with my first term. I don't know how you feel about that, but I would cite the mayor and the city manager's letter in which they talk about the need for planning. And I know we can do this on a year-by-year basis in a select manner, targeting issues. But in terms of the overall community's involvement, I think 15 years makes a lot of sense. Actually, I thought during a previous incarnation that 7 years made sense, but because it costs a lot, we have other things on the plate we should do now. Around 15, I'm going to start pushing.
Just wanted to commend you, Lee, and your staff. Your analysis is good. I happen to agree with it. My feeling is that if the underlying foundation, in this case the master plan, is working and we only have some small specific areas that we may need to address, we can do that through land use and zoning amendments. It's a very expensive and timely process to completely overhaul a master plan, and if it's not needed, I think it's a waste of money and time. I don't think that you can put a time frame on an update of the master plan because it's not driven by time, it's driven by demographics and changing trends, which we basically just lost a decade to, where nothing happened in this country. So I think we're just starting the clock. We actually started the clock again in 2012. The other point that I would make is that as a city or a jurisdiction approaches build out, it has less and less need for a complete master plan overhaul because there's less for you to address other than maybe some infill, which doesn't require a complete master plan update. So I think that you're on the right track. I think you've got all of the potential upcoming issues nailed down. So I'm very happy with the work that you guys have done.
John, go back.
Not to disagree with Brad, because I don't in many ways. The points he makes are very solid. It just seems to me that one part I would take exception to is that the closer you get to build out, when there's still roughly a third left, you're not actually all that close. Time frame wise, according to the demographer's outlook and the stats that we have available to us now, it may be past 2050. And I think that if you reach 2020 and haven't looked out to that juncture, you're going to get into situations where you're not really looking forward enough. You can take care of things on a case-by-case basis, or almost on a case-by-case basis, through existing law, but the master plan gives people guidance. And I would make only this point, that this is a process that, if done correctly, involves the entire community in looking ahead 30 years. Not just those of us who are sitting in these chairs at a given period of time, which might be 4, 8, or 12 years. So the entire community should weigh in, as I said, at least every 15 or so years.
Okay, public comment, anybody? It's an interesting discussion on planning stuff. I'll just tell you, I'm kind of on the one hand and on the other hand. Good lawyer answer.
You see both sides. You see both sides.
You know what Harry Truman said? He wanted to get a one-armed economist because he didn't want to hear him say, on the other hand. So it's not just lawyers.
All right. I see no public comment. Let's take a motion then to approve. Let's go.
I move to accept the Carson City Master Plan Annual Report for consideration in setting the city's strategic plan goals and work programs for 2017.
Second.
Motion and a couple seconds on the motion discussion. Hearing none, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Carried unanimous. Thank you very much. And thanks to Lee, you and your staff, and Hope, thank you guys for doing it. Okay. Let's now take up, where am I here?
15A.
15 Alpha. Report of each condition in the fund. Anybody got any questions?
No.
Of Sherry? Anybody? Public comment? Motion's in order.
I move to accept the report on the condition of each fund in the Treasury and the statements of receipts and expenditures through January 6, 2017 per NRS 251.030 and NRS 354.290. Second.
Motion and a second on the motion discussion. Hearing none, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Carried. Okay. Now let's take up 15 Bravo. This is to adopt a resolution to augment and amend the Carson City fiscal year 2016-17 budget in the amount of $45,186.
45 million.
Just seeing if you're paying attention. Those decimals get important. All right, $45,186. $45,186,242.
Got you going now.
Ms. Paulson, go. I see you
Nancy
got,
Paulson.
the eagle eye there near you.
Yeah,
so-
she's
all
watching
right.
me. Chief Financial Officer, and I have Sherry Russell, Eagle Eye, the Deputy Chief Financial Officer. So we're going to go over the explanation of augmentations, and the augmentations consist of the carryover of restricted and unassigned balances and unfinished projects at June 30th, 2016, the appropriation of grants, both current year awards and prior year grants that were unfinished at June 30th, 2016, current year board or IFC, Internal Finance Committee approved transfers from contingency, or simply just adjusting the beginning fund balance to what they actually were according to the audited fiscal 16 financial statements. I'm just going to give a brief overview of some of the larger funds, starting with the general fund. It's broken up into 3 different columns, and the fund, we'll start with the fund balance column, and that reflects the appropriations from excess fund balance from fiscal 16. The total amount is $2.7 million, but unfortunately about half of that is from restricted or assigned funds. And by restricted, we mean that there are externally enforceable legal restrictions such as NRS or grants. Then there's also assigned amounts which are constrained by the city's intent to be used for a specific purpose. The other column is additional revenue, and that's revenue that is coming in this year that we hadn't budgeted for. And then in the transfers column, those are transfers from contingency that were approved either by the board or Internal Finance Committee. So approximately half in the fund balance column is restricted funds. Some of the larger restrictions are $348,000 for court fees that are restricted by NRS. There's $92,000 in parks programs, $244,000 in health department vaccine programs, $247,000 for animal services donations, $125,000 for assessor and recorder fee technology, and $126,000 for sheriff programs. So the remaining $1.3 million is unrestricted savings from fiscal 16, and we have put that in the contingency account for now. And most of the time that's used for capital, extraordinary maintenance, or just to increase the fund balance during the next budget cycle. So the transfers column, we budgeted $450,000 in contingency for fiscal 17. And this augmentation uses $206,000 of that. And I'll go over a few of the items. $40,000 was approved by IFC for a part-time fire inspector to help with the backlog of inspections due to an employee being out on long-term leave, and also increased activity from the building plan submissions. $30,000 was approved by IFC for 2 trucks to aid in implementing the SNPLMA grant. And this is to transport 10-man crews to the work sites, and that is going to be an all-year-long program. $22,000 was approved for the strategic plan for the Parks Department. Am I going too fast for you? $19,000, IFC approved a part-time DAS technician to assist the front window with check-ins and drug testing, and also 2 Cradle Point units for Wi-Fi access. $46,000 is for debt service that's due June 1st, 2017 for the energy efficiency projects. $16,000 is to reimburse Public Works for Epic Rides expenses. And $32,000 was for an executive search for the fire chief / deputy fire chief, and to perform an employee climate survey at the fire department. Some of those other transfers are between general fund accounts, and the $263,000 you see up there is just moving. We have an agreement to do Douglas County Environmental Health Services, and that was accounted for within the city's environmental health department, and we just wanted to move it out to its own department so that we could track it better. And then, let's see, there's and then the $145,000 is just the community support allocations, and we had that in a board designated line, and we just wanted to move it out to their individual accounts. So a couple items in the additional revenue column. The board approved a landfill worker position for $67,000, and that's offset by increased revenues in the landfill. And then there's $149,927, and those are those are energy rebates to cover project and debt service issuance costs for the energy efficiency projects. And we transferred that to the capital projects fund because that's where we're going to account for the project. So if you don't have any questions on the general fund, I'll go on to the airport. The airport, we're augmenting $2.7 million. That's a federal grant for the North Apron Ramp Reconstruction and Airspace Survey. So that's just revenue coming into the city and then going out to the airport. Then I'll go to the Capital Projects Fund. This is basically the carryover of prior year approved projects and Board of Supervisor and IFC approvals from the break fix account. So there's $4,460,000 that has to do with the Amoresco Energy Efficiency Project. So it includes the project costs, bond issuance costs, and the Celtic and the Amoresco costs. And then 58,000 was moved from the break fix line item for some of the items were juvenile air quality test, the city hall elevator, a sheriff vehicle, and the court's HVAC unit. We had a carryover from the prior year of 173,000 that we've put in to board designated, which can be used for break fix or other items that would come to the board. And then 70,000 is for the air compressor for Station 52 that we talked about earlier. And just a note, right now there's $46,690 left in the break fix that we allocated for this year. And then plus with that carryover, we have another 173,000. So almost 220,000 in the capital projects. And then Regional Transportation Fund, 1.2 million, we're appropriating federal and state grants that were either not finished in the prior year or they're awarded in the current year. A couple of the projects are the Freeway Multi-Use Path and Flashing Yellow Arrows project. I guess that's the light.
No, that's important. That's a battery backup.
The change out of the lights at Winnie and Carson and Roop and Robinson.
Okay.
Okay. And then 488,000 was put into professional services until it can be assigned to a project. On to quality of life.
You go, 480, why was it put in a professional service if we don't have a project instead of undesignated?
I think we didn't have an undesignated account in that fund. I mean, we should probably just develop one and then we could move it down to that. So that's basically what I think it's for right now. It's undesignated until it can be assigned to a project. So on the quality of life fund, there's 571,000 in federal and state grants for open space and parks capital, and 486,000 in a carryover of unfinished projects from last fiscal year. And then 792,000 was added to the land acquisition account, and that's just where they accumulate funds for open space. And then street maintenance. So most of this is just carryover from projects from last fiscal year that weren't finished. So the 159,000 are funds that are remaining from the excess consolidated tax that we moved into streets maintenance for street repairs. And 527,000 is a carryover of street repairs and striping projects that were completed at June 30th. And keep in mind that most of these projects have already been completed because they were done in July and August. And then 258,000 for street lights and equipment, and 75,000 for ADA improvements. Then for the infrastructure tax fund, we're carrying over $6 million for corridor projects, which are funded by the bonds that were issued back in fiscal 15 from the 1/8% sales tax. 834,000 was carried over for the completion of the animal shelter. And there's 75,000 for downtown benches and bike racks that were donations.
So looking at that, I'm assuming we're close to closing out the animal shelter. Is that indicating that 289,000 from the animal shelter project was not spent and going to be moved to the corridor project?
That's correct.
I just want to put that out on the record then, that the shelter came in 289,000 less than anticipated.
Right. Okay. And then on the grant fund, there's 1.4 million in just the carryover of prior year grants and the appropriation of current year grant awards. The 911 surcharge fund, There's 172,000 carryover for the Tiburon project, which I believe is almost complete. There's just a little bit left to be spent. And then 150,000 is being moved to an undesignated line item and will be used for the item we talked about earlier. Yeah.
Here today and gone.
Yeah. I'll skip down to the ambulance fund. There's 198,000 that the board approved for two Type 1 ambulance chassis remounts. And those, the money wasn't spent last fiscal year, so we're moving it over to this year. And then they needed an additional 48,000 for emergency medical supplies and equipment. I think that's it on the ambulance. So storm drain, there's 608,000 in stormwater projects that are being funded by the state revolving funds. And for the sewer, there's 18 million for projects to include the Water Resource Recovery Facility and the Clear Creek Sewer Project, and those are again paid for with the state revolving funds.
Is that draw down everything? Are we done with the revolving? I thought so, okay.
And building permits, we're increasing the professional services line item. That's where we pay the fee to Charles Abbott, and that's offset by increases in revenues due to increased building permit activity. There's 41,000 that Charles Abbott actually gave back to the city to be used for technology upgrades. We received that last fiscal year, and they're spending it in this fiscal year. And then they've increased the contractual services line item by 70,000 to help with the backlog in engineering and fire inspections, and these are offset by increases in revenue also. In the workers' comp fund, we're just increasing the claims expense line item. We budgeted 500,000. Last year, it was 1.5 million. And so we're adding 312,000 to make it 812,000 for this year. And then I think that's it for the general government. Oh, okay, just go on with redevelopment? Okay. There's only a few things with basically I'll just go over the revolving fund. There's 150,000 carryover for the facade improvement program. That was budgeted last fiscal year, wasn't able to be spent. Most of it, or a lot of it's been spent already in this fiscal year. 255,000 was to finish the 3rd Street project. And then we just added the remaining 191,000 to undesignated. And that's it for RDA.
Okay. I know that Nancy and Sherry, you guys have probably talked to all the board members offline as well. So any questions that we have here? John, Supervisor Barrett.
That leads me to a question. During that discussion offline earlier this week, Nancy, and I think I already knew this, but it reminded me that the IFC actually is 3 city staff people, as I understand it. You and the city manager and Melanie Briquetta, is it, from HR? Or is there
Yes,
are there
and
others?
then Adriana from the DA's
And
office.
Adriana, okay.
Yeah, so there's
4
4,
there,
yeah.
right. And I was just curious, it's a question from the newbie, why there isn't one member from the board that serves on that, or would that be inappropriate?
I don't know. Personally, I don't know if it's appropriate or not, but personally, my sense is that it gives us a distance to, I mean, if you have a board member on there that comes here, then, you know, we're automatically kind of looking at, you know, a prejudgment of the issue at this board. I'd like to have the distance so that it's not, you know, that if there's an issue we need to address, we don't have to worry about stepping on the toes of a board member who's on IFC. So that's my own 2 cents. But
Couldn't you say that about other commissions or committees?
Yeah, you could.
Boards? Airport Authority, for example, to use my own situation.
you could. But some of them are statutory. So, but go ahead, Adriana.
I just wanted to add that that's actually an administrative body. It's not a public body. It's just an administrative, internal body, but not a public body. So
By law?
Yes. So for an administrative committee and an administrative body, it's not subject to the open meeting law. It's not public.
Well, if there were one member on, that wouldn't stop that, would it?
No, it wouldn't, but for transparency purposes, you would want to go ahead and publish it and agendize it, and then it wouldn't be administrative anymore. Then you might as well have an interim finance committee be a public body, like any other board and commission.
That's a good reason.
Okay, public comment? Okay, we'll take a motion on our side of things, and we'll close out. Motion's in order.
Resolution number?
2017 R4.
I move to adopt resolution number 2017 R4, a resolution to augment and amend the Carson City fiscal year 2016-17 budget in the amount of $45,186,242.
Motion, a second on the motion. Hearing none, discussion, hearing none. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Carried unanimous. Thank you very much, Nancy and Sherry. We'll now recess as the Board of Supervisors, and I'll turn the gavel over to Supervisor Abowd, the Chair of the Redevelopment Authority. Supervisor Abowd.
Okay. I'd like to call to order this meeting of the Redevelopment Authority and let the record show that we have a quorum. Is there any public comment at this point in time? Seeing none, I'm going to move on to item number 19 for possible action to adopt a resolution to augment and amend the Carson City Redevelopment Authority budget in the amount of $697,772.
And can we incorporate by reference, the discussion we had during the general board meeting a few moments ago? All right.
Nancy, do you have anything further to add?
No, I don't.
Is there any board discussion on this issue?
You can do it.
Any public comment? Seeing none?
Motion.
Not me. Don't blame me.
Motion is in
I
order.
got the resolution number first. I move to adopt resolution number 2017 RAR2, a resolution to augment and amend the Carson City Redevelopment Authority fiscal year 2016-2017 budget in the amount of $697,772.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. On to item number 20, to appoint Supervisor John Barrett to the Redevelopment Authority Citizens Committee to fill an unexpired term ending January 2018. Nick, do you have anything to say about that?
No, the only thing, Madam Chair, last meeting, the Board of Supervisors appointed Supervisor Barrett to the RAC. Technically and legally, that is under the purview of the RDA, so we've brought it back to correct that action.
Thank you for the information. Any further discussion from the board on this? Any public comment on this? Seeing none, I'll bring it back to the board.
I move to appoint Supervisor John Barrett to the Redevelopment Authority Citizens Committee to fill an unexpired term ending January 2018.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Any objection, John?
I think I already covered that. No,
All right.
no objection.
All right. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. All right. With that, we have a final public comment. Seeing none, we will adjourn as the Redevelopment Authority and reconvene as the Board of Supervisors.
Okay, we're now going to call the Board of Supervisors back to order. We're on item 24, Board of Supervisors non-action items. Anybody got anything? I do. There will be the State of the City address. That was last night. I wonder. State of the City address on January 30th at 6 p.m. at the Community Center. We should all be there. And I think the way it's going to operate, the way the chamber would like to see it operated is we'll have an address, and then we'll all be there and have a Q&A from the audience. It'll be kind of a living room setting on the stage. So if that's okay with everybody, that's what we'll do. And that'll be at 6 p.m. at the Community Center on January 30th. Yeah, City Manager.
So, Mr. Mayor, members of the board, just a couple of quick items. Number one, I want to go over some of the after-action comments from the flood and from the storm event that we had about a week ago. We did a lot of work in preparation. I want to point out especially the Public Works Department, particularly our Stormwater Division, Streets Division, the Emergency Management Team. We actually leaned pretty far forward in identifying problem areas. We had been working pretty much around the clock getting ready for that storm. We pre-positioned supplies. In addition, we set up several pre-positioned sandbag locations for the community at large. Just within Public Works, during that 3-day storm, almost 4-day storm period, we put out over 35,000 sandbags. I want to particularly thank the State Department of Forestry. They were a great partner. We had a couple of very serious problem areas that at the right moment we were able to get an NDF crew there, assist us, assist our Public Works team, and also our Parks and Recs team in other places in sandbagging some of those problem areas. We only had 3 homes that I'm aware of that actually had any flood damage. That was due to a lot of foresight in design of our flood control measures, a lot of preventive maintenance that our Public Works team did in advance of the storm, and that residents themselves did. Just to give you a couple of numbers here, because we also worked very hard on the information campaign in getting out as much information to the community as possible. Our webpage over a 3-day period, if you remember, we set up a separate flood page on the city website. We had over 24,000 unique hits to it. So pretty good for a city of 55,000 people. We had about 24,000 hits over a 3-day period. If you look at Facebook, we had about 118,000 separate impressions on our government Facebook page. And of particular interest to the mayor, we had nearly 70,000 unique views of the videos that we put out. So, right, I'm getting a lot of requests from the community that maybe you and the fire chief are going to do a morning show or something here. I'm doing my best to perpetuate that rumor, but we'll see how that goes. Not to freak everyone out, but I think it would be prudent for anyone watching this meeting to take the proper precautions. We're going to have what looks to be a pretty significant snow and winter storm over the next 3-day period. So if anyone was planning to get their prescription filled on Monday, you may want to do it tomorrow. Monday looks to be a particularly heavy day. Down here in the valley, we could get significant snowfall in excess of 6 inches, maybe more, down in the valley. Obviously, up at elevation, it's going to be a significant storm. So if you're planning on going anywhere, pay particular attention to the forecast. There's already issues at every mountain pass right now. So again, I don't want to freak people out, but take prudent precautions. We're going to be watching the storm very carefully. It looks to be a classic winter Sierra storm. So we are going to have significant snowfall down here at the valley Sunday night, Monday morning. Monday looks to be particularly problematic, although tomorrow also looks to be problematic as well. So again, take prudent precautions. We do have our city status map is updated, and we'll be keeping that updated throughout the weekend and really, from here on out. We've got a very proactive rapid response team that is keeping an eye on everything. So I think all the residents can rest assured that their city government is on it, getting ready for the past storm. I know we surprised a lot of people who either called Public Works or called me, and they were shocked that a crew actually showed up and cleared out the ditch or whatever their problem was in advance of the storm. We're going to continue to take those proactive measures. We're getting ready to take the ice rink down. As many of you know, I think we're going to be at a decision point this year. We literally held it together to get through calendar year 2016, 2017 here. I don't know where we're going to be next year. I do think we have some significant capital requirements, both for the glycol system, which is actually what freezes everything, as well as, you know, the physical backboards around the ice rink, in addition to the tents. I used to play ice hockey. I spent a lot of time in the boards, so I would encourage the board members, before we tear down the rink next Friday, if you haven't been out there, go out and take a look at it so you get a feel for what we're going to be talking about. In a couple of weeks, we're going to bring that for your consideration. For the school board meeting tonight, I've been notified that the school board is going to have a quorum problem. They most likely will not have a quorum present. We did have one item for action that I'm going to change for information only. So, you know, with your approval, Mr. Mayor, we'll continue with the meeting as scheduled. All the items will be for information only, and we'll just be able to continue that relationship with the school board this evening. That's all I have. Thank you.
I just wanted to comment on your comments, Nick. The map was great. I watched it from before there was a single event on it until it was almost blocked out with events. I got to see NDF and Public Works in action because of the 3 houses that you said that were flooded. 2 of them were 2 and 3 doors down from my house. And I'm telling you, they had this down and they worked very well together. There must have been 30 vehicles out there and almost 50 people. And they got in there and out of there with 2 truckloads of sandbags and got all the drainage ditches and all the flooding areas sandbagged off within probably 30 minutes, and then they were on to the next problem area. So Karen and I were at the Carson Water Subconservancy meeting last night, and I can tell you that the other surrounding counties had much more damage than we did, and they're actually watching what we did because we were so proactive to see what we did and how we did it so that it can help them be better prepared.
Thank you.
Yeah, let me just echo that. City Manager, hats off to your team. I know that a lot of them lost a lot of sleep and worked, you know, tirelessly to help things. And I'd also like to say thanks to the community, because as you and I are driving around a lot, you could see our residents out cleaning the gutters, cleaning out the storm drains. Everybody pitched in, and because of that, in our relationship with the state and things like that, because everybody pitched in, we did. You know, nobody does well in a storm, but we did better than our surrounding neighbors, and a lot of that is because, you know, we have a community that works well together. So, I saw a quote on Facebook that City Manager, you are in your element as a Marine. You know, out there guiding the guiding the troops. So,
I appreciate it, Mr. Mayor, but it was really the team, especially Public Works, did a phenomenal job.
They did. All right. Anything else?
Yeah, I'd like to ask a question is how our stormwater system worked. Obviously, you anticipated things and that helped a lot, but the stormwater system itself, how did it function?
I'm going to ask Darren to come up, give a couple of brief comments. I mean, we benefited in a couple of different areas, and I think Darren can talk
just
about it.
Be factual and don't ask for money.
There you go.
Did I hear 50 million? Going once. Darren Schultz, Public Works Director. Good afternoon. I think it's afternoon. The storm drain system worked really, really well. What was new to us was this type of storm. We don't typically get them thankfully, once a decade or less is good for us. That steady rain for an extended period of time, that's really not what we build our storm drains for, because these storms don't come enough, and frankly, we couldn't really afford to build it to the level we needed. So the storm drain system handled everything really, really well. We had, as Nick talked about, we definitely had some problem areas around town, and it's just because the amount of rain that came, and it just kept on coming. And then the snow melt on the slopes of the Sierra on the east side here, really, or the east side of the mountains, the west side of the city, with the rain falling on that and melting it, that compounded it. So if you went around town, you know, the majority of our retention and detention basins were full and spilling over. That's what they're designed to do. I would love to have bigger detention basins to stop more water, but we just can't afford that. What we do want to do, focus in the future, is just trying to channel the water more effectively through our city. We know it's going to come. Let's get it through our city as best we can down to the river without, you know, damaging the properties around. So that's what we're working for in the future.
Thank you, Darren, and pass on to your troops our thanks and the community's thanks. All right. Anything else, City Manager? Board? We're ready to adjourn or recess until tonight? Okay, then we will recess as the Board of Supervisors until this evening. We're going to close the meeting now for a briefing by our legal counsel. So this will be closed. So we're in recess until 6 o'clock tonight, and our legal counsel's here, so we'll be closing the doors. Okay. Yeah, we're gonna just come on up here.